Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and the welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations. Amen. Amen. Namaste.
Oath or affirmation, announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, the Honorable Faris Alwari, MP, member for San Fernando West, has requested leave of absence from the 22nd of February to the 28th of February 2019. Mrs. Christine Nualo Hussain, MP, member for Kumuto Manzanilla. Dr. Suraj Ratan Rambachan, MP, member for Tabakit. Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, MP, member for Caroni East. Mr. Rodney Charles, MP, member for Naparima, have requested leave of absence from today's sitting of the House. The leave which the members seek is granted.
Bills brought from the Senate. Petitions.
Member for Tunapuna.
Madam Speaker, I beg to present a petition on behalf of Kendra Mark Gordon, Attorney at Law for the Chief State Solicitor of Trinidad and Tobago, of numbers 23 to 27 St. Vincent Street, Port of Spain. I move that the clerk be allowed to read the petition.
Honorable members, is it agreed?
Yeah.
Please proceed.
To the Honorable Speaker and members of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago in Parliament assembled. The humble petition of Kendra Mark Gordon of the Chief State Solicitor's Department, 23 to 27 St. Vincent Street, in the city of Port of Spain, in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, respectfully showeth as follows. 1. Your petitioner is an attorney at law, having been admitted to the roll of attorneys at law of Trinidad and Tobago in 2009. 2. Your petitioner is the instructing attorney appearing for the Speaker of the House of Representatives, an interested party in High Court Action number CV 2009-000460 between Mr. Rudal Munawal as claimant and the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago as defendant. The matter, a constitutional motion filed by the claimant, the Member of Parliament for Oropouche East, arises from two matters related to the privileges of this House which were referred to the Committee of Privileges for its consideration and report. The claimant instituted the said High Court action on February 4, 2019, alleging that the Committee of Privileges of the House of Representatives is improperly constituted and that certain members are automatically disqualified from sitting on the committee, and, as a result, his constitutional rights have been infringed. 5. During the first hearing of these proceedings, the Honorable Madam Justice Everson Quinlan Williams made an order that the Speaker of the House be joined as an interested party in the matter. The claimant is seeking certain reliefs from the court, including a declaration that the decision of the Speaker to proceed with the hearing of the allegations of whether the claimant committed a contempt of the House on October 9, 2018 and October 10, 2018, with the Committee of Privileges as currently constituted, is in breach of the claimant's fundamental rights guaranteed under Sections 4B, 52E, and the right conferred by Section 55 of the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. 7. The claimant is also seeking an injunction and/or conservatory order restraining the defendants, its servants, or agents, and more particularly the Committee of Privileges of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, from continuing the hearings into the allegations of whether the claimant committed a contempt of the House on October 9, 2018 and October 10, 2018, until the hearing and determination of the High Court matter or until further ordered. 8. The interested party is required to file and serve affidavits on or before March 8, 2019, and proposes to annex the Hansard reports of the proceedings of the House of Representatives for October 9, 2018, October 10, 2018, October 16, 2018, and November 2, 2018, and to produce and refer to them at the hearing of the constitutional motion before the High Court to indicate what took place in the House of Representatives on the said dates in relation to the referral of the matters to the committee. 9. The Clerk of the House or other such officer responsible for the making of the Hansard report of proceedings in the House of Representatives is required to swear to an affidavit referring to and exhibiting the said notes of the proceedings or extracts thereof, attesting that they are the true record of what was said in the House of Representatives on the said date. 10. The petitioner thereof humbly prays that the House of Representatives do grant leave for the Clerk of the House or such other officer, 1. To swear to an affidavit referring to and exhibiting the said Hansard report of the proceedings or extracts thereof, and attesting that they are the true record of what was said in relation to the matters related to the privileges of this House. 2. To attend the hearing before the Honorable Judge, if required, on such dates as the matter may be adjourned from time to time by the court. And your petitioner, in duty bound, will ever pray. Dated 22nd day of February, 2019. Signed by Kendra Mark Gordon, Chief State Solicitor's Department, 23 to 27 St. Vincent Street, Port of Spain.
Honorable members, the question is that the petitioner be granted leave to proceed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Leave is granted.
Papers.
The Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the honor to lay the following papers: the consolidated financial statements of First Citizens Holdings Limited and its subsidiaries for the financial year ended September 30th, 2018. That is paper 1. Papers 6 to 7, the audited financial statements of the National Infrastructure Development Company Limited for the financial years ended September 30th, 2016 and 2017. The report of the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago with respect to the progress of the proposals to restructure CLICO, BAT, and CIB for the quarter ended September 30th, 2018. I beg to move that papers 1, 6, and 7 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee.
Honorable members, the question is that papers 1, 6, and 7 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Attorney General.
Sorry about that, Madam Speaker. What did you say?
Speaker, on behalf of the Attorney General, I have the honor to lay the following papers: the Economic Sanctions Implementation of United Nations Resolutions of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea Order 2018. Number 3, the Economic Sanctions Implementation of United Nations Resolutions on the Islamic Republic of Iran Order 2018. Thank you very much.
Leader of the House.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay the following papers: the ministerial response of the Ministry of Education to the 15th report of the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee on the examination of the audited accounts, balance sheets, and other financial statements of the Youth Training and Employment Partnership Program for the financial years 2008 to 2014. Number 5, the ministerial response of the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government to the 19th report of the Public Accounts Committee on the examination of the audited financial statements of the Chaguanas Borough Corporation for the financial years 2008 to 2011. The response of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to the 16th report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee on an examination into the implementation of the Public Sector Investment Program. 10-11, the ministerial responses to the 12th report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee on an examination into the administration of disaster relief in Trinidad and Tobago. The responses are from the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government and the Ministry of National Security. 12, the ministerial response of the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs to the second report of the Joint Select Committee on Foreign Affairs into an inquiry into regional integration and strengthening of CARICOM institutions. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Reports from committees.
Member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have the honor to present the report of the Committee of Privileges of the House of Representatives on the allegation of misleading the House, as well as the interim report of the Committee of Privileges of the House of Representatives on the allegation of threatening words.
Urgent questions.
Member for Barataria Sanwan.
The Minister of National Security, could the Minister indicate why detained illegal immigrants at the detention center are not processed efficiently to prevent a capacity problem occurring there?
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and to my friend from Barataria Sawa. Madam Speaker, it is wholly incorrect to suggest that the detained illegal immigrants at the detention center are not being processed efficiently. And that is what has caused the capacity problem occurring there. In fact, what has caused it is there has been an increase. There was an increase in the number of illegal immigrants, but also, in addition to that, that has been coupled with the increased efficiency of our border security and also the immigration officers in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in picking up more of these persons who are already within our borders, who are here illegally. So I'd like to commend the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, the men and women of the Immigration Division for the efficient work that they're doing. And unfortunately, one of the consequences of this efficiency is they've held more people in the detention center.
Supplemental, Member for Barataria Sanwan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Supplemental Minister. Minister, can you, at this point in time, indicate the monthly cost of keeping a detainee there and the average length of stay of a detainee? I mean, if you can do it now.
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, as my friend is acknowledging in his asking of the question, I don't have that information here on that level of specifics, and I would not want to venture a guess.
Supplemental, Member for Barataria Sanwan.
Minister, would you consider doing either an interview process on an amnesty for those who are productive illegal immigrants, who have been productive in their own country?
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, there is an interview process that is part of the process and the procedure of dealing with these illegal immigrants. I intend to take to Cabinet very shortly, and the Prime Minister has spoken about it, as have I, a policy for us to adopt as a Cabinet and to try and persuade my colleagues that all of the Venezuelans currently here, as a first step, they need to be registered. And in that registration process, part of it would be, what work they can do, et cetera, et cetera. And then we will take, once all Venezuelans here legally or illegally are registered, it will give us the data as to how many are here, and it will give us the data as how many are here legally, illegally, what they're here doing, etc. And then we would take further decisions that might very well incorporate allowing them to work for the period of a year. And thereafter, anyone who's held here illegally, we will deal with them in accordance with the current law.
Member for Faizabad.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, given a recent incident where 2 young boys slipped into an open oil seep in the Point 14 area, could the Minister indicate what measures have been put in place to address the resultant safety concerns that arise from the existence of such hazards?
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as is now public knowledge, 2 young boys, ages 12 and 14, fell into a heavy oil seep in the Point 14 area. The government of Trinidad and Tobago would like to thank those involved in the rescue effort for their timely intervention. And we wish the 2 young boys a speedy, full recovery to this episode. But Madam Speaker, throughout the southern basin of Trinidad, there are quite a large number of natural oil seeps, a lot of which accumulate in puddles. While no incident of this nature has been reported in the past, the fact that this was a close call clearly warrants the attention of the authorities. The Ministry of Energy and Energy Industry, therefore, will now consult quickly with the Geological Society of Trinidad and Tobago to quickly map large oil seeps, most of which have already been mapped by the famous Dr. Hans Kubler geological map, and see whether they pose any safety threats. Those so deemed, especially those close to residential areas, will be equipped with proper signage and, where appropriate, barriers.
Thank you for your answer, Minister. Minister, in this particular case, I understand it was quite close to a school. Can you indicate whether any urgent measures have been taken to prevent a recurrence in that particular site?
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
As I said, residential areas, which will include schools, and schools are even more vulnerable if it does exist. In this immediate instance, we will put proper signage and possibly some barriers. But there will be a general mapping out of all the natural oil seeps, especially those occurring close to residential areas and areas of population. They are significant amounts in the deep forest, but at present they pose no major threat.
Supplemental member for Faizabad.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, in view of this current danger, can you indicate perhaps a time frame when you expect this process to be completed?
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Well, in the first instance, the current one in question, I would say almost immediately, but the process will start from probably after the carnival.
Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the member for Oropouche West to the Minister of Public Utilities, in light of complaints from residents of Maria David Trace, San Francisco, indicating that they have not received any pipe-borne water for some 14 consecutive days, could the Minister indicate when this situation would be rectified?
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, I would first like to advise that the supply of water to residents of that particular area comes from the Currently Water Treatment Plant. And as has been historically in this particular area, that area for a very long time now, they receive water based on schedules twice a week, 2 days a week, Thursdays and Fridays. And as I want to put on record, this has been happening for a very long time. Based on the present environment, which we have been advertising a lot with regard to the drought situation, the Water Resource Agency has advised that we should cut back water supply coming out from the Caroni from 70 million gallons of water a day down to 55 million gallons of water a day. That is a 15 million gallons of water a day reduction. As a result of that reduction of water, we now have a situation whereby the schedule in that particular area has now changed from twice a week to 1 day a week. Based on, again, and this has been historically how it has been around these times, especially during the dry season. We, however, and therefore my records are showing that the last supply to that area, as provided to me by WASA, was on Monday, the 11th of February. Water is presently in the area based on the change of the times, all right, and the area will now receive water every Monday, 1 day a week. That being said, mindful of that situation and the need to improve water in that general area, we have invested in a new booster station at Sabaneta and...
Time is now spent. Supplemental member for Point of Appeal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, you now say based on the current situation, you're now down to 1 day a week, which will be Mondays. Could you give an assurance to to me and when would that last, that 1 day, and get back up to that 2-day schedule?
Minister of Public Utilities.
Again, recognizing that 1 day a week and that schedule area is not sufficient, we, based on investments that we have made recently in a new substation at Sabaneta, together with improvements that we are making at present at the Teak Village Booster Station and also at this new South Orapooch Booster Station, we are expecting that by June, we should be able to move the water supply when everything normalizes up to from the present 2 days a week to 4 days a week. So when we get back to a normal situation, that area will now receive water 4 days a week because of the interventions that we have put in place. As for now, because of the drought situation and the reduced water that is going in there, at this point in time, because of an absence of water and the need for people to conserve, we will continue to experience water until such time that this matter has been clarified or cleared up. We will only receive water 1 day a week.
Supplemental member for Shogunas East.
Very much, Madam Speaker. Honourable Minister, in view of the 1 day a week which you acknowledge is insufficient, will you be able to indicate through us to the residents whether there will be a truck-borne supply available and how many days in the week will that be available?
Minister for Public Utilities.
Yes, Madam Speaker, we do intend to augment the situation with a truck-borne supply, and the process for getting truck-borne supply residents could make the necessary requests to WASA, and we have intended to increase the amount of contractors with truck-borne supply so as to help to augment the situation. However, as I want to reiterate, based on the investments that we have made in this situation, when we are able to get back to normal conditions, that area for the first time will be experiencing, and not only that area, other surrounding areas, Faizabad, Saparia, Sang Village, will now start to get water 4 days a week.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of Education, following a protest held this morning by parents, students and teachers of the Montrose Viddick School arising from a flea infestation at the school, could the Minister indicate when this matter will be urgently addressed?
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I wish to assure, first of all, the parents, teachers and the students of the Montrose Viddick Primary School that their health and the safety concerns are being addressed by the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education has undertaken several interventions since the start of the new school term to determine the cause of the itching experienced by students and the teachers. A collaborative effort by the Insect Vector Control Division, the Shogunas Borough Council, and the Ministry of Education was utilized to spray, sanitize, and fumigate the entire compound. Additionally, spraying and cleansing has been done on nearby drains on a regular basis. However, the cause of the itching has not yet been identified positively. The Ministry of Education has been looking at buildings in and around the Shogunas to house the students if the canting of the students become necessary. 2 new sites have been identified and are being considered for the possible temporary relocation of the school population. Site visits will be done next week. Thank you very much.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you. Minister, are you aware that this flea infestation is a 4-year-old problem which you and your ministry are yet to resolve? And therefore, with you saying that you are looking at sites, how long again are the students and parents and teachers, how long again are they to wait after 4 years for this relocation?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, I'm aware that this problem extends beyond 4 years. It was there long before I came into office, and nothing was done by the previous administration to solve this problem. So don't come today and blame us. I'm fully aware of that. For more than 3 years, or more than 5 years, during the previous administration, nothing was done.
Member for Couva North, these are urgent questions. You're entitled to further supplemental if you wish. Minister of Education.
Yes, as I was saying, this problem exists for more than 6 years, long before this present administration took office. And nothing was done by the previous administration. But I can tell you, Madam Speaker, I'm happy to state what we have been doing so far. I can give you timelines. On the 21st of January, we met with all the stakeholders to see what can be determined. On the 22nd of January, we involved the Shogunas Borough Council and the County Medical Officer of Health. On the 22nd of January, traps were set by the Ministry of Health and left overnight. Nothing was caught except mosquitoes. On the 24th of January, traps were set by the Ministry of Health during the day while school was in session. Again, nothing was found. On the 20th of January, physicians visited the school and they met with the principal and other personnel and examined 10 teachers and the 16
Minister,
students.
the speaking time is now spent.
Thank you.
Member for Shogunas East.
Madam Speaker, Honourable Minister, can you indicate to us what is the ministry doing or has done for this fiscal year, this school year so far, which started in September? What have you done to ensure that the students who are writing the SE exam within 5 weeks' time from now, on the 4th of April, what has been done to ensure that they are not disadvantaged?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, I am happy to state that the school is not closed, and the students of Standard 5 have been attending school regularly. However, as I stated just now, if it becomes necessary to decant the entire school population, we are looking at 2 possible buildings in the Shogunas area so that those students can be facilitated. Thank you very much.
Honourable members, the time for urgent questions is now spent.
Questions on notice, questions for oral answer.
Leader of the House.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are 8 questions for oral answer. The government will be answering all 8, and we respectfully ask for a 2-week deferral for the 2 questions to provide written answers for. Thank you very much.
Member for Naparimo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the member for Naparimo, question number 47 to the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs.
Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs.
Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs has well-known, practiced, and accepted procedures in place to address the need to adopt appropriate positions at international fora and the seeking of advice and instructions from the ministry on the position to be articulated on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. These procedures were not followed by the staff of the ministry in this case. As a result of the staff at the ministry not following the established procedures, the permanent representative of Trinidad and Tobago to the OAS articulated a position at a meeting of the Permanent Council of the Organization of American States in Washington, USA on the 23rd of March of last year that did not reflect the position of the government of Trinidad and Tobago on the request by Dominica for a waiver of fees payable to the organization. Following the incident, the Honorable Prime Minister commissioned an investigation into the matter to determine the true facts, address accountability, and submit guidance and recommendations for action by the ministry. The investigation was undertaken by former Ambassador Christopher Thomas. The report was presented to the House of Representatives on 11th of January of this year and to the Senate on January the 15th, 2019. Madam Speaker, it is standard practice that important matters such as the request for a waiver of the fees due by the Commonwealth of Dominica to the OAS, where the official position of Trinidad and Tobago is to be announced, must be brought to the attention of the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs in good time. However, in this case, the Minister's approval and authorization for the recommended position was not sought or obtained by the Permanent Secretary prior to providing instructions to the Permanent Representative of Trinidad and Tobago to the OAS on this matter. In fact, the Permanent Representative to the OAS was given instructions by the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry that were completely contrary to the official position of humanitarian assistance, technical support, fellowship and aid given by Trinidad and Tobago to Dominica in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. It must be emphasized that the express authorization of the ministry is required to be sought and obtained by the Permanent Secretary for any instruction or guidance to be provided to the Permanent Representative to the OAS on such matters. This did not occur in this case, and the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry at the time has since accepted full responsibility for the error. The non-adherence to established procedure led to the eventual articulation of a position which did not represent that of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Coming out of this matter, and as recommended in the report of the investigation by former Ambassador Christopher Thomas, the ministry will undertake training and orientation for diplomatic staff and head office staff and reinforce the necessity for adherence to and implementation of established processes and procedures which are in place to ensure proper conduct by all representative staff. The recommendations of the report have been duly noted and will be implemented. In closing, Madam Speaker, there has been some reference in the public domain to a message sent by WhatsApp to the Minister just before the vote was taken at the OAS meeting in March of last year. Following the Permanent Council meeting, it was discovered that a few minutes before the unauthorized position was taken by Trinidad and Tobago's representative at the meeting, a WhatsApp message was sent to the Minister seeking confirmation that the position communicated by the Permanent Secretary was correct. However, this message contained no explanation or details of the matter in question, and by no stretch of the imagination can such an informal method of communication be deemed to be acceptable. In the first instance, it is unreasonable to expect the Minister to be constantly monitoring his phone for messages of this nature, and secondly, an imprecise electronic message without explanation on a matter as important as this one, a few minutes before a vote is taken to adopt a country position at an international forum cannot be deemed in any part of the world to be proper communication. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Member for Barataria, San Juan.
Minister of Works. Question number 72, the Minister of Works.
Minister of Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the information required to ascertain the percentage of vehicles that have been found to be defective at the inspection station in 2018 must be sourced directly from the various garages throughout Trinidad and Tobago. At this time, no systems are in place to retrieve data of this nature from the garages to update the license office. Instead, what can be determined is the number of vehicles that are inspected and found to be in a good mechanical condition based on the number of inspection stickers issued by the garages. B, motor vehicles under 2,275 kgs in weight are required to be inspected every 2 years, providing that they are older than 5 years from the date of manufacture. And C, Madam Speaker, the inspection fee of $300, of which 75 or 25% is currently remitted to the government as reimbursements for the inspection stickers and documentation. Out of the remaining $225, a further $25 is VAT, value-added tax, is remitted to the government so that, in effect, garage owners retain a total of $200 for every inspection, whilst $100 goes to the government. I thank you.
Supplemental member for Barataria.
Minister, would you, since a foreign use vehicle starts off at about 3 to 4 years old, would you not consider a differential time period for inspection between a foreign use vehicle and a new vehicle?
Minister of Works and Transport.
Madam Speaker, the short answer for that is no. Thank you.
But that's unfair.
It's based on the manufacturer's date of the vehicle. So a vehicle may come in as a foreign use vehicle, but there have been instances where there have been people tampering with some of the documentations for the importation of foreign use vehicles. Thank you.
Member for Shogunas East, supplemental.
Hold yourself. Your Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, Honourable Minister, with respect to the first part of the question, can you indicate to us whether you have found garages to be issuing approval stickers which have been questionable, and if so, how many? And what has been done about it?
Thank you.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Madam Speaker, there have been instances where we have found vehicles using some of the information on social media and by the license officers on the road where they came across vehicles that should not have been granted inspection stickers. To date, we have cancelled 2 garages license, and my information is that today, a 3rd inspection station will be removed from the inspection list, and some inspectors. Thank you.
Member for Urupuch West.
On behalf of the member for Urupuch West, question number 76 to the Minister of Finance.
Minister of Finance.
You want to answer? Thank you. Answer restriction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, there are presently no plans to restructure the National Insurance Board of Trinidad and Tobago. However, the board is currently undertaking a number of initiatives to ensure the sustainability of the National Insurance Fund. The National Insurance Board has noted that the National Insurance Act is in need of revision, and as such is engaged in an exercise to update and streamline the legislation, in order to modernize it and make it more user-friendly. The National Insurance Board is also in the process of developing a new 5-year strategic plan, and this initiative is expected to be completed before the end of the organization's financial year on June 30th, 2019. This plan will examine all requirements of the organization, including the suitability of strategies and existing structure in meeting long-term objectives of the national insurance system. It should be noted that the main source of future deficits is a consequence of the changing demography in Trinidad and Tobago, in that persons are living longer and the population is decreasing, and also the relatively low rate of return that the National Insurance Fund is generating, which at current levels will not in the future be able to support the increasing number of persons in the system. These 2 factors are impacting social security systems not just here, but all over the world. The result of this is the ongoing increasing disparity between the National Insurance Board's benefit expenditure and contribution income. This phenomenon is resulting in an increasing number of persons qualifying for an NIS pension, for which they will receive benefits for many years into their retirement. And more pressure will be placed on the declining workforce to finance the increasing number of future benefit recipients. In this regard, government is reviewing the recommendations of the 9th and the recently concluded 10th Actuarial Review. The main recommendations of these reports advocate increasing contributions and increasing the retirement age. However, as we have said on many occasions, the impact of such recommendations in our current environment requires very careful analysis. The government recognizes the importance of the National Insurance Board and our system of national insurance. We will continue to closely monitor and collaborate with the National Insurance Board to bring about the needed reforms and ensure the sustainability of the fund into the future.
Member for Couva South, supplemental.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister, could the Minister advise us House whether any recommendation focuses on freezing the current pension at $3,000 for a period of a number of years? Sorry.
Minister of Finance.
The 10th actuarial report should be laid in the Parliament shortly, and recommendations relating to that matter and other matters will be made known to members very soon. I'd prefer not to preempt that. You'll get the report in short order, and you'll see all of the recommendations that the actuaries have made. I want to stress, these are just recommendations. The government has to make a decision as to whether it accepts, rejects, or modifies the recommendations.
Supplemental, member for Barataria-Sanwo.
Are you aware that there are retirees from the Southwest Regional Health Authority who have not received their pensions, and it's almost 3.5 years?
Minister
I am
of Finance.
not aware. If you have names, please send them to me.
I will.
Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, on behalf of the member for Oropouche West, question number 77 to the Minister of Health.
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Answer to Part A is, the number of persons officially assessed to be mentally unstable from January to December 2018 is 4,068, 4068. Answer to Part B. As of February 6, 2019, 18 persons are detained for assessment at the St. Anne's Psychiatric Hospital as a result of being referred by a court of criminal jurisdiction. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental, member for Faizabad.
Thank you for your answer, Minister. Would you be in a position to provide a breakdown by diagnosis for the 4,016 patients assessed as mentally unstable?
Minister of Health.
I don't have that granular detail here, but I can tell you most of the cases are some form of depression or related to depression. Those make up the bulk of the cases. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, member for Chaguanas East.
Madam Speaker, Honourable Minister, might you be able to say with respect to the question Part A, whether 2018 shows an increase or decrease from 2017?
Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, if that question is posed, we can get the data for the previous years. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, member for Barataria-Sanwo.
Minister, is there any process ongoing where the Ministry of Health is working for destigmatization of mental illnesses?
Minister of Health.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. That is quite an excellent question. We started a process in 2016, 2017, and going into 2018 on World Mental Health Day, actually October 10th, 2018. We started a campaign, Paint the Town Green, which had clinical outcomes, but also outcomes related to decrease of stigmatization. What we are also doing is working with patients and families in starting a process long overdue in this country of starting the decentralization of mental health. As you know, as a former Minister of Health, our current method of, and I use this term not pejoratively, but warehousing people in St. Anne's for 20 and 30 years is a stain on this country's health service. And we ought not to have done that. We have started a process under a new mental health policy to start the gradual decentralization of mental health and putting persons suffering from mental health as close as possible to their communities and their families so they can be reabsorbed into their societies and the communities. That is part one of decreasing stigma. That process is ongoing. What we have also done, Madam Speaker, is set up 3 acute inpatient psychiatric units and wards at North Central, Southwest, and TRHA, again, to reduce stigma and better clinical outcomes. We have 2 extended care centers at Couva and Point Fortin. We have to remember children. We have 3 child and adolescent outpatient clinics in Port of Spain, Pleasantville, and Scarborough, Tobago. We have 27 adult outpatient clinics all over Trinidad and Tobago. And we have started up 3 mental and wellness centers, 1 in Carenage, 1 in Port of Spain, and 1 in Barataria. Increasing our drive to decrease stigma, we started a new program called Mental Health Gap Action in all RHAs via the primary care system. And we are also doing work in the prevention and management of aggression and violence. All of these have the dual outcomes of reducing stigma, reducing discrimination, and hopefully getting a better clinical outcome. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental member for Faizabad.
Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for that response. Does any of this work involve collaboration with the Ministry of National Security in terms of training for police officers to deal with mentally unstable citizens in the public domain?
Minister of Health.
There is a collaboration between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of National Security, I am advised. Thank you very much.
Member for Barataria, Sanwan.
Madam Speaker. Question number 81 to the Minister of Works and Transport.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, currently there is no legal framework for the regulation of disabled parking in Trinidad and Tobago. The Legal Service Unit of the Ministry of Works and Transport has completed a draft policy for the establishment of a legislative framework for disabled parking in Trinidad and Tobago. The policy will be referred to the Cabinet next week for ratification and will seek to amend the current motor vehicle and road traffic regulation. It is intended, the intentions of the Ministry to finalize and implement these regulations in 2019. Thank you.
Supplemental member for Barataria, Sanwan.
Do you know if that policy will have on it disabled parking close to banks where there are no parking areas?
Minister of Works and Transport.
Madam Speaker, it will be a comprehensive policy to ensure that parking for disabled persons will be guaranteed at all public places, and there will be fines, severe fines for anybody who does not have a disabled park who have been found to be parking in those parking spots. Those will be reserved for people who have disabled parking access. Thank you.
Yes. Member for Barataria, Sanwan.
Minister of National Security, question 82.
Minister of National Security.
Very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, according to the information provided by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, there were no terrorists apprehended on the Trinidad and Tobago Air Bridge in the past 5 years. The answer to B, the security measures on the Trinidad and Tobago Air Bridge fall under the purview of the Ministry of Works and Transport. At this time, there's no evidence or indication that these security measures are not required. Indeed, a single terrorist incident on the air bridge would have severe consequences for Trinidad and Tobago, and all necessary precautions, we continue to take all necessary precautions in keeping with international norms.
Supplemental member for Barataria, Sanwan.
Minister, are you aware that children are removed from their strollers and the strollers are then placed through the X-ray facility rather than a handheld device?
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, that is actually in accordance with best practice all over the world and airport security. You can't use a handheld device to pick up explosives and any other sort of plastic explosive, any other devices that may be IEDs, etc. in a stroller. So that minimum inconvenience is keeping the safety of all passengers, including my friend for Barataria South.
Member for Oropouche East.
Wow, you're still pushing
On behalf of the member for Oropouche East, question number 86 to the Minister of Tourism.
Minister of Tourism.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the Minister of Tourism, the answer is no. No infrastructural or development works were carried out on no man's land. In fact, as we've said over and over, if that project were to go ahead, there was absolutely no work that would be carried out on no man's land.
Member for Oropouche East.
Speaker, again, on behalf of the member for Oropouche East, question number 87 to the Minister of Tourism.
Minister of Tourism. Leader of the House, are you in a position to answer?
The Minister of Finance will be answering soon.
Yes, sorry about that. The computer froze up. Madam Speaker, the construction of the new terminal and associated works at the Ayanna Robinson International Airport in Tobago was never contingent on the Sandals project. In fact, Madam Speaker, this PNM government clearly stated in its 2015 manifesto that the construction of a new world-class international airport in Tobago would be one of its priority projects. This has also been presented in our 2030 vision, the National Development Strategy for Trinidad and Tobago, and was approved in this Honourable House and in the other place since 2017. Madam Speaker, with the increase in the number of international flights and passengers, it became evident that the existing terminal constructed in 1953, last upgraded in the 1980s, and then modified in 2016, had outgrown the international traffic and does not meet all the necessary international aviation standards. As a responsible and futuristic government, Madam Speaker, we are going to build a new modern state-of-the-art terminal with capacity to serve a minimum of 3 million passengers in its first phase of development. We are going to upgrade the current terminal to improve the existing service level and expand cargo operations. We are going to develop the airside and landside infrastructure. And I can report, Madam Speaker, this project, which, as I wish to repeat, was contained in the PNM manifesto, is well underway. The procurement of a FIDIC engineer is almost completed, and the request for proposals for the main contractor, that is the building contract, will close on the first week of March 2019. The land acquisition consultants and the cadastral surveyors are already hard at work, and financing is being sourced from the Andean Development Bank, or CAF, as an optional source of funding.
Thank you, Minister, for your answer. Could you state what is the status or the percentage of the land acquisition around the airport that is required for the phase 1 of the airport?
Minister of Finance.
No, if I had known that that question would be asked, I would have brought the information, because it's not a secret. If you pose it in the proper manner, I will provide the information, because we have settled on the area of land to be acquired. So, but if you ask in the proper manner, I will certainly provide the information.
Request for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers.
Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I am authorized by the Cabinet to make this statement. Members of this House may recall that on the 1st of February 2019, by way of a brief statement, I informed this House and the general public on the ongoing efforts towards implementation of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act, Act number 1 of 2015. That statement became necessary in light of a number of misleading, mischievous, and uninformed statements made in the public domain that required correction. At that time, I indicated that draft procurement regulations to be made under Section 63 of the Act were received at my office on the 30th of November 2018, as an aside, and not 2017, as had been erroneously published. and that those draft regulations had been reviewed internally by the Ministry of Finance and were also sent to external senior counsel for the review and comments in order to ensure that the regulations are intra vires the Act. Madam Speaker, permit me this afternoon to provide a brief status update on those implementation efforts. Several divisions of the Ministry of Finance, including the Central Tenders Board, as a statutory body currently responsible for government procurement, it will go out when the Act is fully proclaimed, undertook a comprehensive review of the draft procurement regulations from both a technical and legal viewpoint. That review highlighted several areas for amendment, clarification, and elucidation aimed at greater workability and certainty of process. In particular, it was noted that the regulations required more specific and focused provisions related to the disposal of public property, an often overlooked area of public financial management that, left unchecked, can greatly contribute to wastage of public money. It was also noted that the regulations were silent on a critical aspect of the Act set out in its long title, namely the retention of public property. The Ministry of Finance therefore raised for consideration the inclusion of provisions that would mandate procuring entities to effectively maintain assets that were procured using public monies and setting minimum standards for such maintenance. Written comments detailing all aspects of the regulation that require review have been prepared by the Ministry of Finance and were forwarded earlier today by my office to the Office of Procurement Regulation for consideration. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Finance is also in receipt of advice from external senior counsel dated the 11th of February 2019 and the 15th of February 2019. The advice received indicates that while the provisions of the draft regulations are for the most part intra vires, that is to say within the legal authority of or powers created by the Act, there are certain provisions that have been found to be ultra vires, that is to say beyond the legal authority and powers of the Act, and which require further review. Such provisions include instances where the scope of the regulations extended beyond the confines of the Act, resulting in an impermissible enlargement or addition to the Act. Conversely, there were instances where the regulations purported to limit the operation of the Act in a manner inconsistent with its intent. These are the draft regulations I'm speaking about. It was also suggested by senior counsel that in revising the regulations, careful consideration should be given to aspects of the procurement process that should be the subject of regulations as opposed to guidelines and other guidance material issued by the office. A view was also expressed that the regulations as currently drafted may be difficult to implement since they may be open to subjective interpretation, thus leading to unnecessary and unproductive challenges. Therefore, in addition to the comments prepared by the Ministry of Finance, the advice received from senior counsel was also forwarded by my office to the Office of Procurement Regulation for consideration today. Madam Speaker, in light of the findings of both the internal and external review, I am confident that the comments provided will engage the attention of the procurement regulator and that a revised draft of the procurement regulations will be forthcoming in short order. The Ministry of Finance stands ready to continue providing all necessary support to the procurement regulator in the development of the procurement regulations so that upon operationalization of the Act, the new procurement system will operate effectively and in keeping with the spirit and intent of the legislation. Despite the need for further work on the finalization of the procurement regulations, I remain committed to attaining full implementation of the Act in the shortest possible time, and the Ministry of Finance will continue to work assiduously towards that goal. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Personal explanations, introduction of bills, motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a minister, public business, private members' business.
Honorable members, the debate on the following motion, which was in progress when the House adjourned on Friday, January 25th, 2019, will be resumed. Be it resolved that this House consider details of the two-part address of the Honorable Keith Rowley, MP, Prime Minister termed Mind Your Business, reporting to the nation, that aired on January 6, 2019 and January 7, 2019. Honorable members, on the last occasion, the following amendment was proposed. Whereas the present government inherited in September 2015 a very difficult and challenging financial situation as a result of the profligate and reckless spending of the previous government. And whereas, in the face of these challenges, the present government has stabilized the economy, created an economic turnaround, and laid the foundation for sustainable economic growth. And whereas in the face of the current economic situation, there is a need to do more with less, and this has been achieved by the present government. Members taking part in the debate may speak on the original motion as well as the proposed amendment. Member for Princestown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to be able to contribute to the motion before the House presented by the Leader of the Opposition, and an amendment has been proposed, as you have indicated, by the member for Diego Martin Northeast, Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, on listening to the presentation made by the member for Siparia on the last occasion, it was very clear that the honourable member brought us back to reality. There was no alternative reality, as we saw in the presentation made by the Honourable Prime Minister in a two-part series. Madam Speaker, in the context of both international and domestic politics, there is now something called fact-checking. And that fact-checking that was done by the Honourable Member for Siparia revealed the real facts, the real figures, but also the real P&M. Madam Speaker, after carefully listening to the presentation of the member for St. Joseph, a presentation in itself that was filled with innuendos, half-truths, and dirty politics, one can summarize that the presentation by the member for St. Joseph had two main points. One, a tongue-in-cheek presentation with respect to the word abort. And secondly, the honourable member sought to deal with the hospitals, the Couva Children's Hospital, the Port of Spain General Hospital, the Arima Hospital, and the Point 14 Hospital. And the honourable member indicated, and I refer to Hansard page 200 of the unrevised edition, Madam Speaker, the honourable member for St. Joseph indicated that the member for Siparia had bolted to her personality, both figuratively and literally, on truths as it relates to the financing of the Couva Children's Hospital, the Arima Hospital, and the Point 14 Hospital. Madam Speaker, I want to say to the honourable member for St. Joseph, and in reference to page 200 of the Hansard, the member said, I want to give advice to the member for Port of Spain North to abort any conversation about Gregory Bissessa. Madam Speaker, as it relates to one Gregory Bissessa, I want to say to the honourable member for St. Joseph that you will be remembered as the minister who aborted medication in the hospitals, who aborted beds in the hospitals, who aborted jobs for young doctors and young nurses. Madam Speaker, Gregory Bissessa is an honourable man. He's a man who is not a deadbeat father who has children appearing on the national stage every Monday morning. That is not Gregory Bissessa. But Madam Speaker, I want to deal frontally with the issue with respect to the financing of the Couva Children's Hospital, the Arima Hospital, and the Point 14 Hospital. And I will deal with the Couva Hospital first, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member for St. Joseph indicated... That might be your stand, but I think she says this. My apologies, ma'am. No disrespect meant. The honourable member for St. Joseph indicated that the member for Siparia told untruths when it came to the NGC dividends being used to finance the Couva Children's Hospital. Madam Speaker, I studied this Hansard like a Bible. From the first word the member for St. Joseph said to the last word. There's no way and nowhere in this Hansard that reflects that the member for Siparia indicated that cash in hand was utilized through the NGC dividends to pay for the Couva Children's Hospital. Totally fabricated, totally untrue, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the honourable member said these untruths were bolted to the persona of the member for Siparia. I want to tell the honourable member for St. Joseph that I prefer have a leader who has bolted to her persona hospitals that affects and changes the quality of people's lives. I do not want to have a leader who has bolted to their personality issues related to geometry, issues related to a woman is like a golf course. Those things, Madam Speaker, should not be bolted to the persona of any leader. What should be bolted is exactly what the member for Siparia has done, and which is to focus on human development through hospitals. Madam Speaker, probably the member for St. Joseph would prefer to provide some advice to the member for Diego Martin West as to what should really be bolted to his persona. Madam Speaker, the NGC dividends that the member for St. Joseph spoke about. At no time did the member for Siparia indicate that cash in hand was utilized for the Couva Children's Hospital. What will be reflected in the figures and the revenues of expenditure and estimates, Madam Speaker, is that the NGC dividends were utilized over a period of time, yes, to finance the interest on the loan. And the honourable member for St. Joseph gave us the profile of the interest. We never disputed that, Madam Speaker. And if they want to know where the money gone, that is where the money gone. It went into ensuring proper health care at the Couva Children's Hospital. But you see, Madam Speaker, I heard across the floor on the last day, the member for Diego Martin North East said, part of the strategy is repeat, repeat, repeat. So they hope that they repeat these falsehoods of NGC dividends were cash in hand that was spent all willy-nilly when the truth and fact it was used to pay the interest on the loans, Madam Speaker. And that is how the Couva Children's Hospital was financed. The honourable member for St. Joseph indicated that the member for Siparia told this country that it was a gift, that the Couva Children's Hospital was going to be a gift. Madam Speaker, there's no evidence in the public domain where the member for Siparia ever indicated to this population that it was going to be a gift. We always knew that there was no free lunch, and therefore we knew that the financing had to come from somewhere. We utilized the NGC dividends for that. Madam Speaker, something the member for St. Joseph repeats, and that could be found on page 207 of the Hansard. The member said that the UNC opened and closed the Couva Hospital in one day. He said, I could never get an answer from anyone. Big placard, big concrete thing in front of this hospital. On the concrete thing, this is what was said, that the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa commissioned on August 14, 2015, the Couva Children's Hospital. Madam Speaker, the member for St. Joseph said he could never get an answer why the hospital was open and closed on the same day. But the member also told us what was on the stone. And what was on the stone was the word commissioned. And I brought a gift for the member for St. Joseph today. It is called a dictionary. You see, Madam Speaker, when you turn to the dictionary, it will tell you the difference between open and the difference between commission. And I'll share with the member for St. Joseph what commission means, since it appears as though he is not fully aware of what the word really means. You see, Madam Speaker, in the dictionary, it says, commission is an authoritative order of direction. So when the Couva Children's Hospital was commissioned, the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa gave an authoritative order of direction to the SWRHA. Madam Speaker, to the SWRHA and the Ministry of Health to operationalize this hospital. And Madam Speaker, we had a plan for that, you know. And the plan, the member for Barataria Sanwan and the member for Faizabad will tell you that the plan was always to operationalize that hospital in phases, starting with the accident and emergency department. But they think it is politically expedient to play with the lives of children by saying open and close on the same day. But remember, I will send you that dictionary so you now know what the word commission means. So you will no longer have that problem when you stand in this house and say that no one can tell you why it was open and closed, because it was never open and closed. It was commissioned. Madam Speaker, I want to turn to the area of the Port of Spain General Hospital, which a member for St. Joseph dealt with. And the member blew a dog whistle, which is reflected in the Hansard, where the member said they don't care about Port of Spain and East-West Corridor people. And he understood clearly what it is, what he was doing. But Madam Speaker, the member for St. Joseph is in total conflict, and I understand why he's in conflict with the Port of Spain Central Block. And maybe, Madam Speaker, later on in the proceedings, I'll share a little bit more about that. But you see, Madam Speaker, nothing was further from the truth. The member for Barataria Sanwan as Minister of Health was working on a plan where the entire Port of Spain General Hospital would have been refurbished and reconstructed. Madam Speaker, the member for St. Joseph has now put into the public domain that one block in the Port of Spain General Hospital will cost us $1 billion and more. Madam Speaker, we built the Couva Children's Hospital totally furnished with equipment, state-of-the-art, for $1.4 billion. $1.4 billion. The Port of Spain General Hospital Central Block will be built for over $1 billion without equipment, Madam Speaker, and without being fully furnished. Madam Speaker, and they want to speak on that side about value for money. Madam Speaker, I turn to the area of the Arima Hospital. And we got one long song and dance from the member for St. Joseph about why they were able to save money. First of all, there are no savings, Madam Speaker. What they have done is that they have repurposed the scope of works as it relates to the hospital. The member for Oropuch East told you how they removed all the UDICOT fees and all the charges to reflect a reduced figure. Madam Speaker, that is playing smart with foolishness. Madam Speaker, I turn to the issue of the Point Fortin Hospital. And the member said that this was international scandal. And I'll come to scandal, member for St. Joseph. Madam Speaker, international scandal was the phrase utilized by the member for St. Joseph. The member for St. Joseph, Madam Speaker, should really have felt ashamed to raise the issue of the Point Fortin Hospital. And I'll share with you why, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, for decades, the People's National Movement, I think I was asking Dr. Khan, I think it was as far back as Dr. Eric Williams who promised both the Arima Hospital and both the Point Fortin Hospital. And it took an administration led by the member for Siparia to ensure that that was bolted to her persona to deliver to the people of Arima and the people of Point Fortin. Madam Speaker, when those arguments were totally debunked by the members that contributed, I could not help but laugh about what was said next from the member from St. Joseph. It was as though the member went from 1 to 100 after realizing he had totally lost on all those points. Madam Speaker, on page 201 of the Hansard, the member moved from discussing hospitals to saying this: I am coming to that. We have refinanced all the short-term loans they gifted to us instead of dealing with loans, you know what the member dealt with, Madam Speaker? Child marriage. The member said that the UNC did not support child marriage. Madam Speaker, the Hansard will reflect that when this bill came to the House, every member who were present on the opposition bench voted in favor of the child marriage. What we gave voice to, Madam Speaker, what we gave voice to, because in any democracy, that is how a real democracy works, not how PNM democracy works. In a real democracy, we gave voice, a voice, to those who believe that a Romeo clause should have been included. Madam Speaker, when that voice was given, the members opposite did not accept that voice and those recommendations. And in the interest of the children of Trinidad and Tobago, we said those were not our voices. We were ventilating in the public domain what civil society was saying. But we will always do what was right. But again, when you cannot speak through facts and figures, you jump to child marriage. And that tells you about the quality of debate from a member of St. Joseph who could not justify any of the rationale given for bolting to the persona the NGC dividends being utilized as payments on the loans and the interest, Madam Speaker, to the persona of the member for Siparia. Madam Speaker, I turn to the issue contained in, oh, I have it here. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sorry about that. Madam Speaker, I turn to the issue dealt with by the Minister of Finance, the member for Diego Martin Northeast, who sought to amend the motion brought by the member for Siparia. And Madam Speaker, when I heard that the member for Diego Martin Northeast was going to amend the motion, and he read the motion, the amendment, I was totally horrified. I said anybody else on that side had the moral authority probably to amend the motion, but not the member for Diego Martin Northeast. And I will share with you why not the member for Diego Martin Northeast, Madam Speaker. You see, Madam Speaker, the member for Diego Martin Northeast said this in his amendment. I beg to move that the motion be amended by adding the following words immediately before the resolution. Whereas the present government inherited in September 2015 a very difficult and challenging financial situation as a result of the profligate and reckless spending of the previous government. Now, the previous government that he was referring to was a member led by the member for Siparia, the People's Partnership under the period 2010 to 2015. So the member sought to introduce the reckless spending of the previous government that he described as profligate. So I said, if anyone in this House who would know about profligate spending between 2010 to 2015, it really would be the member for Diego Martin Northeast and the member for Diego Martin West. And Madam Speaker, I'll share with you why. You see, Madam Speaker, during the period 2010 to 2015, we did have to deal with profligate, reckless spending. But the period 2010 to 2015, where we had to deal with the profligate, reckless spending, was not the spending by the member for Siparia and the People's Partnership. It was those same short-term and long-term loans that the member for St. Joseph spoke about that we had to come and clean up in 2010. And Madam Speaker, the member for Diego Martin Northeast, the member for Diego Martin West, who was in the cabinet that oversaw Trinidad and Tobago signing on to these long-term loans as far back as 2004. Madam Speaker, as far back as 2004, the member for Diego Martin Northeast and the member for Diego Martin West was in the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago that signed on to the loans that we had to pay, that he describes, the member describes, as profligate, reckless spending. And I will go into some of those, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they don't like to hear the truth, you know, because the real profligate, reckless spending that took place was prior to 2010. And when 2010 to 2015, the spending had to be done to pay off these loans, long-term, medium-term, and Short-term, Madam Speaker, it was because of the profligate spending by the member for Diego Martin Northeast, now Minister of Finance. And yet you wonder why we are in the circumstance that we are in today? I'll start with this, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in 2010, and we're dealing with profligate, reckless spending that the member accuses the last administration of doing. 2010, $1 billion in cost overrun, Vanguard Hotel, now Magdalena, and Tamna E-Tech Park. $1 billion had to be paid in loans between 2010 to 2015. I dare the member for Diego Martin Northeast to dispute these figures from the revenue of expenditure, Madam Speaker, between that period. Madam Speaker, the Hilton in 2010, Madam Speaker, Hilton Trinidad moved from, in 2007, $222 million to $700 million. The member for Siparia as Prime Minister had to pay for the profligate and reckless spending of the member for Diego Martin Northeast and the member for Diego Martin West when she came in between the 2010 to 2015 period. So I think that is probably the reckless spending and profligacy that the member is speaking of. Madam Speaker, the Tamna Park, it started at $1.8 billion, went to $2.8 billion, a 180% increase. And they want to know where the money gone. The money gone when the member for Siparia during 2010 to 2015 had to pay for your profligacy, your recklessness, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the construction sector. When the member for Siparia came in as Prime Minister, head of the People's Partnership, I heard the member for St. Joseph said that when he came in as minister, a Chinese company came knocking at his door saying that they were owed $72 million. $76 million. Thank you for the correction, member for St. Joseph. But member for St. Joseph, listen to this one. Through you, Madam Speaker. When the member for Siparia came in the first month, she was saddled with a $7 billion debt to construction companies, Madam Speaker. $7 billion. Wow. And the member for Diego Martin Northeast asks, where that $7 billion? You may want to ask your friends in the JCC, Mr. Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, 2010 to 2015, profligacy, reckless spending, raised by the member for Diego Martin Northeast. Again, not the doing of the member for Siparia and her government at that time, but she was paying for the profligacy and the reckless spending of the member for Diego Martin Northeast and the member for Diego Martin West. You see, Madam Speaker, she had to find the honourable member for Siparia had to find $22 billion to settle the Clico debacle. That is what was bolted to the persona of the member for Siparia on becoming Prime Minister. And they remain quiet because they do not like to hear the truth of what we inherited between 2010 to 2015, where we had to find the money to pay these long-term and short-term loans, Madam Speaker, that they now describe as profligacy and reckless spending. I will continue, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, $1 billion. You know, I remember the member for St. Joseph spoke about a Lord Nelson Calypso. Yes, you spoke about it. It's in the Hansard. Page 200, you can take a look. Lord Nelson's Calypso. Madam Speaker, I want to introduce another Calypso. You see, I like Calypso. And a very prolific Calypsonian, one Kurt Allen, sang in 2010. He said they spent billions on Summit, but they had no place for water and toilets for people to sit, S-I-T. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, $1 billion the member for Siparia had bolted to her persona when she came into office. Madam Speaker, those numbers are not fictitious numbers, you know. I took the time to do the research because I said the audacity of the member for Diego Martin Northeast to speak about profligacy and to speak about reckless spending when he sat next to Prime Minister Manning and said not a word, when he wined and dined with the Queen of England, Madam Speaker, put on his three-piece suit with coattails, ran to the Hyatt, and sat with Her Majesty the Queen. Madam Speaker, not a word the member for Diego Martin North East had to say then. Madam Speaker, the figures reflected in the revenues of expenditure show between the period 2010-2015 bolted to the persona of the member for Siparia having to pay for the profligacy of the People's National Movement $1 billion for the summits. And Madam Speaker, do you know something? We're still paying for that. It is still contained in the 2016 books, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that is the legacy that they have left for the people and the children of Trinidad and Tobago. And the member for St. Joseph wants to speak about, that they care for children so much, and that is why they passed the Child Marriage Act. Up to now, the honourable member will not bring to this Parliament, Madam Speaker, legislation to amend this Child Life Fund because, Madam Speaker, hundreds of children are unable to access that life fund because of the way in which the legislation has been framed. The honourable member of Siparia, myself and others have already indicated that we are willing to support. But that is not, Madam Speaker, their priority. And I want the member for St. Joseph to turn to page 207 of the Hansard, because the honourable member spoke about what were the priorities of a Kamla Prasad-Bissessa administration. You want to know what is the priorities of a Kamla Prasad-Bissessa administration? Bolted to her personality. Bolted to her personality was the interest for children in this country. Madam Speaker, the honourable member of St. Joseph has refused to bring an amendment to that legislation, and that is bolted to your personality, honourable member. Madam Speaker, most contentious issue has been the Brian Lara Stadium. Between the period 2010 to 2015, the Honourable Minister speaks about profligacy. The Honourable Minister speaks about reckless spending. Madam Speaker, I want you to throw your mind back of that spending between 2010 to 2015. But what existed before? In the backdrop of spending $750 million, not million, $750 million. That was against the backdrop. I don't know if you remember, Madam Speaker, when Calypsonian spoke about mothers giving birth on the floors of the hospitals in this country, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, again, that is what is bolted to their persona. But we had to pay $750 million between 2010 to 2015, and the honourable member for Diego Martin North East says that that is profligacy and that is senseless and reckless spending. Honourable member, we agree with you. That is profligacy. That is senseless and reckless spending. That is your spending. Madam Speaker, another one. What we spent on the long-term loans. The Prime Minister's residence in St. Anne's moved from $148 million to $270 million. The member for Siparia becoming Prime Minister, she too, like the member for St. Joseph, but for a much, much, much larger figure, had contractors knocking at her door. They wanted their money. And if the member for St. Joseph will remember, the Honourable Prime Minister also said, I want my money. I don't like my money to sleep out. That is bolted to the persona of the member for Diego Martin West. But Madam Speaker, having to find $270 million to finance loans during the period 2010 to 2015, that is what the member for Siparia inherited. She did not use her time, Madam Speaker, to blame and complain. She used her time to govern for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, and I'm sure the member for Diego Martin North East will really like this one. You see, Madam Speaker, I think the member for Diego Martin North East is familiar with who the Minister of Works was during the period the MV Sue was bought. $60 million. Never utilized one day in the arsenal of the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment. Madam Speaker, the member for Siparia bolted to her persona between the period 2010 to 2015 had to finance the loans for the MVSU. Madam Speaker, this is an administration. This is an administration where school teachers start off as primary school teachers, end up being multi-million-dollar contractors. The member for Diego Martin Northeast and his colleague in the Senate, the Minister of Energy, I think their spouses have a little bit of experience with that, Madam Speaker. But you would not hear about that reckless, senseless spending, Madam Speaker. You would not hear about that. But that is the profligacy that is bolted to the persona of members opposite. Madam Speaker, I don't think this country will ever forget. Will ever forget. And again, Kurt Allen sang about it. When you want, Madam Speaker, an example of profligacy, reckless spending, against the backdrop of not being able to provide proper goods and services to a population that is so totally saturated by high crime, high food prices, this is what we got, aided and abetted by the member for Diego Martin Northeast from the cabinet. Madam Speaker, $2 million on a flag. Profligacy, senseless, reckless spending, the People's National Movement. Madam Speaker.
Member, the original speaking time is now spent.
Already?
You're entitled to
Thank
15
you,
more minutes.
Thank you.
To complete your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Speaker, this country will not forget the $3 million in drapes. We have a short-term memory in this country, Madam Speaker. But for as long as I live, I will never let the people of Trinidad and Tobago forget what the member for Diego Martin Northeast, the member for Diego Martin West participated in when it comes to profligacy, reckless and senseless spending that the member for Siparia had to find the financing for during the period 2010 to 2015. Madam Speaker, the Guanapo Church, one of the most scandalous affairs in the country of Trinidad and Tobago. And the House goes dead silent, and they know very well why. Because they sat in the cabinet then. Member for Diego Martin Northeast, member for Diego Martin West was fired in April of 2008. But when these decisions were made, the honorable members stayed quiet. They lent their support inside and outside of the cabinet, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to share with you, for the first time, what the member for Siparia encountered when she went in to the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister's residence. Madam Speaker, I dare any colleague opposite, be it the member for Diego Martin Northeast, the member for Diego Martin West, any colleague, to produce a bill or a purchase order between the period 2010 to 2015 for a $400,000 stockpile of alcohol in the Prime Minister's residence. That is what the member for Siparia had to pay for between 2010 to 2015 when she went to the Prime Minister's residence, a stockpile of $400,000 and was left there in 2015, Madam Speaker, when she demitted office. Madam Speaker, the Honourable member for St. Joseph, through you, Honourable Madam Speaker, has a preoccupation with abortion and now alcohol. But we can understand the problems that he faces, especially with the issue that the member for Barataria San Juan raised earlier with respect to mental health. But Madam Speaker, $100,000 a month for a Filipino personal assistant to run the diplomatic center. The member for Siparia had to find the money between 2010 and 2015 to pay the gratuity and to pay the contractual arrangements for that. Madam Speaker, I know the member for Diego Martin West likes Savile Row suits. But when the member for Siparia went into the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister's residence, suits from Armani were being ordered at taxpayers' expense for the Prime Minister. thousands of dollars for the ex-Prime Minister, and they sat in the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker, and did not say one word. Not one word, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to share with you the loans. VEMCOT, Madam Speaker, between the period 2010 to 2015. Madam Speaker, between the period 2010 to 2015, the Honourable Member for Siparia had to find $13 million to pay for your profligacy, to pay for your senseless and reckless spending. The member for Siparia had to find $260 million for the TDC. The member for Siparia had to find for UDCOT $300 million. The member for Siparia had to find National Insurance Property Development Company $1.4 billion. The member had to find, with respect to FCB Bank Limited, direct charges for loans taken by the administration preceding her, a total of $493,177,000. The member for Siparia, Madam Speaker, had to find the TNTech repayment of the loan for the power station in Cove, $236 million. TNTech repayment of loan to the National Gas Company, a gas company that they like to speak so much about. Loans, Madam Speaker, between the period 2010 to 2015, the member for Siparia had to find over $1.4 billion. Madam Speaker, and how did we arrive at the profligacy and the senseless spending that we had to pay for between 2010 to 2015? Madam Speaker, I refer to an article dated Wednesday, 23rd April 2008, written by one Gail Alexander in the Trinidad Guardian. And this is what it said. Yesterday, Imbert disagreed with Monday's call by Central Bank Governor Ewart Williams for the government to urgently reduce its spending, as well as spending by quasi-government institutions. Williams cited increasing inflation as the biggest threat to Trinidad and Tobago, warning that Trinidad and Tobago might be on the brink of returning to double-digit inflation. Williams echoed similar warnings by various business groups and the opposition. Wednesday, 23rd April 2008, when every sector was telling them to slow down with these mega projects that did not have people at the center of it. Mr. Imbert disagreed with Monday's call, Monday, the 21st of April 2008, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on Monday, December 21st, 2009, the Honourable Minister of Finance had this to say, then as Minister of Works and Transport, on the property tax bill. The Honourable Minister called Imbert on December 21st, 2009. It does not matter. You heard the member for Diego Martin West say that the government squandered the money and the government wasted the money. How would he know he was part of it? Until we never heard anything about waste and squandermania. Madam Speaker, I'll repeat that. December 21st, 2009, the same member who brings the amendment to talk about profligacy, waste, and reckless spending had this to say about his own Prime Minister, then member, just an ordinary MP having been fired from the cabinet. But it shows you, Madam Speaker, that today is today and tomorrow is tomorrow, because they see about themselves first as opposed to seeing about the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Imbert says it does not matter. You heard the member for Diego Martin West say the government squandered the money and that the government wasted the money. Which government he was referring to? The People's National Movement. How would he know, says Imbert? He was part of it until we never heard anything about waste and squandermania. Madam Speaker, that is what is bolted to the persona of the member for Diego Martin Northeast, who hypocritically amends the motion brought by the member for Siparia. Madam Speaker, I heard the member for St. Joseph say that this government has no scandals, that this government provided good governance, and he listed that as an achievement. Good governance, no scandals as it relates to ministers. You know, I want to remind the honourable member for St. Joseph that it is his own Prime Minister who described the fiasco of the Port Authority as a crooked deal. But in that crookedness, Madam Speaker, you know what the member for Diego Martin West and the member for Diego Martin North East did? The same person who presided over what the member for Diego Martin West considered a crooked deal was reappointed to a company formulated to take over the assets of Petrotrin. One Christine Sahadeo. Madam Speaker, I will deal with ministers and scandals. Madam Speaker, from the cabinet allegations of a cabinet minister, it will be almost 1 year the minister is out of the cabinet, and we still cannot get the report. Sexual harassment, over $200,000 paid with state resources. Is that the profligacy and the reckless spending that the Minister of Finance speaks about? Madam Speaker, a minister who was not dismissed once or twice, but 3 times. The member for Oropouche East will tell us as short as a weekend. That minister still have clouds hanging over her head. Madam Speaker, I want to refer you to an article on July 3rd, 2017, and the heading was, Marlene fired because of Burke. Prime Minister divulges details. The member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, and the member for Diego Martin West wants to speak about criminals on political platforms and that they have no association with criminals. Explain to us the Prime Minister's own words. Prime Minister's own words when he said the reason for the removal of Marlene MacDonald as a minister was because of elements that she was associated with. And that was the same day she took one who's alleged to be a gang leader to her swearing in. That is no scandal with respect to ministers, member for St. Joseph. Madam Speaker, a minister who was embroiled in a scandal abroad over property was just simply transferred from one ministry to the other. Still, those matters remain in the public domain, not having properly been ventilated. But the member for St. Joseph says no scandal. Madam Speaker, a minister who refused to indicate what her source of funds were when she made a deposit in the bank. Madam Speaker, not a word. A government senator who was found guilty on a DUI charge continues to remain a government senator today. Well, probably a senator too, Madam Speaker. But the member for St. Joseph says that there is no scandal. There's a minister whose children was photographed with high-powered rifles. Not a word. Is that not the scandal, member for St. Joseph? A minister who today disowns his stepdaughter. But pictures can be found surfacing every day on election day, arm in arm, big hug up. Today, Madam Speaker, that minister says, I know not who she is. Madam Speaker, senior cabinet ministers have been removed. The member for Labre, the member for Dabadi O'Meara. Not a word as to why they were removed, Madam Speaker. Some of them were promoted and then demoted. Madam Speaker, is that not the scandal? Madam Speaker, the scandals that exist in this government, the Galleon's Passage, AV $100 million in oil that the Prime Minister admitted is his bestie. That is what is bolted to the persona member for St. Joseph, to Diego Martin West, Diego Martin North East, and the entire government of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister told us that government is not about magic, it is about management. I want to tell the Honorable Prime Minister, government is also about performance and not mama guy. The government is also about work and not blame. Government is about getting the job done, not hoping that the people will forget when you blow the dog whistle, that they will forget that you have done nothing. And the member for Siparia puts it quite right. Nothing from nothing equals nothing. And that is what is bolted to the personas of this entire inept, incompetent government. And I support the motion brought by the member of Sisaparia because she and she alone knew what she had to endure to find billions of dollars to pay for the profligacy and reckless spending of the members opposite Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to have contributed. I want to debunk this amendment brought by the member for Diego Martin Northeast. I think I have provided sufficient evidence and information. And if members opposite had any shame, they too will debunk the profligacy and the senseless, reckless spending that the minister speaks about between the period 2010 and 2015 and agree that they presided and continue to preside over ineptitude, incompetence, and that, Madam Speaker, will be the continuance of the hallmark of this people's national movement led by Prime Minister Keith Rowley. Madam Speaker, as I said, I rather have a leader who has values and projects that you can see and touch everywhere you go than have a leader whose only claim to fame is to tell you, if you bark at my dog, I will ignore and I will end there, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Member for Shagona cease.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion, which was brought by the Leader of the Opposition, Member for Siparia, with respect to the two-part presentation of the Honourable Prime Minister entitled Mind Your Business, reporting to the nation. Madam Speaker, I will also attempt to make a contribution with respect to the amendment to this motion, which was raised by the member for Diego Martin Northeast. But before I do so, let me publicly commend the Leader of the Opposition, Member for Siparia, for bringing this motion for us to debate today and for the country to really dismantle and to understand what was said by the Honourable Prime Minister in a two-part presentation. I also want to commend and congratulate all my colleagues who have spoken so eloquently. And I will, in a while, just add to some of the statements that were made by the member for Princestown. But, Madam Speaker, I was very disappointed, like so many of us, when we listened to the presentation by the Honourable Prime Minister. The Honourable Prime Minister did not let a week pass, the 6th and 7th of January of this year, when he attempted to gather a number of persons who obviously are in support of what he would have been saying, to listen to him for about 3 hours or thereabouts or more. And I was very disappointed because I thought that on that occasion, on the first week of the new year, that what I would have been listening to is a plan for the future of this country. I thought we would have been here to listen to the hope, not the hopelessness, not the haplessness, but the hope for the people of this country, for those workers, those 9,000 workers who would have lost their jobs at Petrotrin. Maybe some of them would have been re-employed. And when we ask about those persons who have lost their jobs and their families, what was the answer? Well, we're going to be opening a dry docking facility in La Brea, and we'll be having 15,000 jobs. Madam Speaker, I was so disappointed because I wanted to know what was going to happen to those persons from TSTT, the 500 more, who would have lost their jobs. I wanted to listen attentively to hear what was going to happen to all those persons who could not get basic CNAP drugs in this country. I wanted to listen to the Prime Minister telling me and telling the country what was going to happen to the thousands of young people who are graduating from our tertiary institutions, many of whom couldn't have jobs. Madam Speaker, I thought he would have been able to tell us that the Minister of Labour came to the House and said that we'll be able to create 35,000 jobs, make it available to the citizens of this country. Where? Through Hire Pro, drive truck in Canada. I thought the Prime Minister would have told me how much trucks we'll have to drive in Trinidad and Tobago to create indigenous labor opportunities. Madam Speaker, I really thought that I was going to hear something in terms of what was going to happen to the debt-to-equity ratio. All I mean in big terms is that how much money we owe and what it is our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will have to pay. I was waiting with bated breath, and I read this as well, to hear what is going to happen to the textbooks, to hear how schools with a flea problem for the last 3 or how much years can be solved, and to come here to hear about a flea problem, a simple thing. I was listening attentively to hear some of the solutions for our people of Trinidad and Tobago. What was going to happen with the air bridge and the sea bridge? What was going to happen to all the things that people hoped for, that you promised in your manifesto in 2015? I described that manifesto as one of the greatest con jobs on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The reason being, you promised and you did not deliver, and I could go into that manifesto, Madam Speaker, and I could give you the instances and the evidence of what you would have said you would have done and didn't do. Madam Speaker, I want to come to some of the comments. As a matter of fact, if I may also say, I want to indicate that arising out of the discourse of the Honorable Prime Minister, some of the things that we listened to was really a fixation on oil and gas. I will tell you how I interpret the presentation of the Honorable Prime Minister over that 2-day or 2-night period that I listened and that I read subsequently. As a matter of fact, I felt that what it was saying in summary is it was saying to those persons who were listening, I want to tell you how we reached to where we reach in this country, where we are now, and very little of what we want to do in the future to resolve some of those issues. We didn't hear very much of that. I want to also say that what I didn't hear, and I hope I would have heard, was how are we going to use, now that we don't have much oil, we're going to invest in the assets of Petrotrin into other companies. What was going to happen to gas, that gas reserves? We know more gas economy. Yesterday, I picked up a newspaper. And what I was seeing in that business aspect of the newspaper is that gas price in the United States of America was going down. And that it is not going to be any near in the horizon that is going to increase. I am not going to be preaching any gloom and doom in Trinidad. I love this country. I am going nowhere from here. But I hope and I pray that those who said they wanted to lead this country has the competence, the ability, the dedication, and the commitment to ensure this country survives and progresses. Madam Speaker, I would have been, if I were in a position, I would want to hear, in terms of the monetizing of the gas reserves, how much per MMBTU of gas, what is that going to transfer and transform into in terms of jobs and opportunities? We used to boast and we continue to boast. We say we are the world's first producer in ammonia and methanol. Do you know what the world is doing? The world, we are just like what Lloyd Best described when I was a young man at the University of the West Indies. The plantation economy hasn't really modified. And when he joined with Professor Carrie Levitt, what he wrote was the plantation economy further modified. In that context, I'm making this statement, Madam Speaker. When we export our methanol and our ammonia, which we boast so much about, who are we exporting that to? Another country to do what? To add value to that product that we have created here. Why am I not listening and hearing in the presentation of the Honorable Prime Minister what we could have done to upstream, to downstream, to diversify, to create more value for the primary production that we would have been engaging in? And I want to say that we have a lot of opportunities. Madam Speaker, I want to also say that when we look at some of the comments, and my colleague from Princeton just made a few, when you look at what is happening in terms of Trinidad and Tobago, what is the plan for business opportunities? I want to ask, again, I was hoping when I listened to the Honorable Prime Minister, I would have been able to hear one single new program, one single new tertiary institution, one single program that would have been able to assist in the downstream industries. And I want to, my contribution substantially, I'm going to focus a lot on the diversification of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, which he has spent a lot of time on, because a lot of my colleagues have spent a lot of time on oil and gas and the energy sector. But I'll make some comments about diversification in a while. But one of the things I wanted to ask is, what is it are we going to do? What is new? How are we responding to this labor market? Madam Speaker, when I became minister in 2010, and I want to thank the Honorable, the former Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition for allowing me to run the Ministry of Tertiary Education and Skills Training but in its previous incarnation in 2010 was called the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Tertiary Education. And Madam Speaker, one of the things that we met there, and I was hoping to hear something like that. As a matter of fact, when I looked at the presentation of the Honourable Prime Minister, I thought he didn't even speak with the Minister of Education. There was very little, if anything at all, there in education. Nothing I could have related to. But I want to ask again the question. I am a firm believer that education and training and the knowledge economy is what is going to drive Trinidad and Tobago in a diversified state. A lot of people talk about one of my colleagues, and he's sometimes ridiculed when he mentions Singapore. I could tell you about Singapore. I had the opportunity to study at the National University of Singapore, where you see a small country, 1/7 the size of Trinidad, alone, not even Tobago, and 5 times the population of Trinidad and Tobago. What they have done with something called brain power. Brain power. And I was hoping to hear, what is it we will be doing in the future that will transform this economy? That society, Singapore, was substantially based on a knowledge-based society. Madam Speaker, my first day at the university when I sat, I looked out the window and I see a lot of oil tanks. And I asked, well, I didn't think that Singapore has oil. They said, no, we don't. But Singapore, through Shell, refines 500,000 barrels of oil a day. Why? Because it is an entrepot. It is a main thoroughfare, and it has capitalized on that. I was hoping to hear something that what it is we're going to be doing in Trinidad and Tobago. Where is the forward plan? But instead what I heard was the first 1/3 of the presentation was about blaming the previous government. Yep. And I want to come to that now. I want to say, Madam Speaker, that part of the amendment to the motion talks about profligate spending. And when I just look up in my phone here, and my colleague made mention of it, and profligate has to do with recklessly extravagant, wasteful in the use of resources. That is what the member for Diego Martin Northeast has placed into this amendment. And I want to deal only with my ministry that I was responsible for. Madam Speaker, my colleagues will talk about other things and their ministries. And I want to challenge the member for Diego Martin Northeast was a former Minister of Science, Technology, and Tertiary Education. And he would have seen what I would have done and what my colleagues would have done under the leadership of Mrs. Bisessa. I just want to ask the member, since he brought that amendment, to tell this country whether through the University of the West Indies, the expansion that took place, the expansion of more than $500 million for the creation of a new state-of-the-art campus on 124 acres of land in the southern part of this country, which the current Vice-Chancellor of the University of the West Indies said that this was the single largest investment ever of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, courtesy the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. For what? For the benefit of taxpayers and their children and those to come. I want to ask the Honourable Prime Minister, and I also want to ask the member for Diego Martin Northeast, who brought the amended version of profligate spending, whether Landing 9YUTT, the first jet donated by FedEx for the creation of the first aviation campus in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, whether that is profligate spending. And I call upon the Minister of Education. That is state-of-the-art in Camden, Couva, and I look forward to my invitation to attend the opening of UTT campus, aviation campus in Couva. I want to ask as well whether the amount of money we have been spending on the maritime campus, on Tamana, on all of these institutions, in terms of University of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, for the first time when we assumed office, teachers did not have to travel from Tobago to come to Trinidad to do their bachelor's in education. We ensured that we opened the state-of-the-art MIC Institute of Technology under the then chairman, Dr. David Lee, together at YTEP. And you cannot pass Canaan without looking at that building and seeing the use of it. And what we started to do was the University of Trinidad and Tobago teachers who were pursuing the bachelor's degree in education were being able to be taught right in Tobago. They didn't have to commute from Trinidad to Tobago and vice versa. Madam Speaker, I also want to indicate, for the first time, and I want to know whether this is profligate spending as well, and I work together with the Minister of Health. And let me just say something about the Minister of Health, who was then Minister of Health, not this one. The current Minister of Health spoke the other day about hospitals and so on, and he was saying that attached to this hospital will be a teaching facility. Madam Speaker, I want to tell you, every time the member for Barataria San Juan, then Minister of Health, every time he brought a note to the cabinet indicating he was going to construct a new hospital, I was there to support him and indicate and request of him, and he supported me to say every hospital in Trinidad and Tobago must have a teaching facility. Everyone. And you know why? Why is it? Because what we are seeing now is a duplication of faculties across the University of the West Indies in total campuses. What we are seeing is that Trinidad and Tobago has the lowest cost of training a doctor MBBS when you compare that to the rest of the Caribbean. And therefore, and I can bring the figures when I was there, I don't ever change. But Madam Speaker, I want to tell you, what the Minister of Health is just telling me to change, I want to tell him what has changed. What has changed is that we started, and I turned this out for the new dental facility, the expansion. I'm calling upon the Minister of Health to open it as soon as you can and make sure that we have a lot more persons who are trained as them. No, not yet. You had your time. And as a matter of fact, I just want to indicate it was up at the University of the West Indies, and I'm asking the Minister of Health who has a relationship with the Faculty of Medical Sciences and Dental School and Vet School. If they have a relationship, I want him to ensure that he uses his office as a member in the cabinet through the Minister of Education. I am aware of what I'm saying, Madam Speaker. I was the Minister of Tertiary Education. I know it is a university project, but I also know that it is also supported by the Ministry of Health. Reason why? The Ministry of Health is the beneficiary of the graduates of these institutions. Don't try to tell me my work. I know my job. If you want to sit down and listen, it's EC 101. But I also want to say, I asked the question, whether profligate spending, Madam Speaker, is the first state-of-the-art head office of COSTAT in Shogunas. And the reason why is simply, Madam Speaker, we were paying $1.3 million a month in rent at Melville Street. And I said, under the leadership of Mrs. Bisessa, we must stop paying rent. We must start to own our own property. And at Shogunas, we have 30 acres of land. We only use 5 so far. Madam Speaker, every time we have a graduation at the Hyatt next door, it's $1 million. $1 million. And I said that we're going to have the state of the art, but I want to tell you what we are proud of, what Mrs. Bisessa was a part of and guided us. My colleague in the cabinet who was responsible for sport and youth, I asked him, will you give me the El Dorado Girls Youth Camp? He said, what do you want to do with it? I said, I want to use it for nurses training. He said, Faz, approve. Mrs. Bisessa said, approve twice. You know why? It was holding facilities for 200 members of the protective services. And guess what they had there? A class of 10 people learning music from the community. Oh, geez and ages. This is investment of the taxpayer money. I can tell you we are proud to say that annually we have been training over 1,200 nurses in allied health and nurses academy together with the University of the West Indies. I asked again the member for Digomartin Northeast. I'm sorry he's not here. For the first time in the history of this country under Mrs. Bisessa, we opened after more than 100 years in oil production and exploration, the first NESC drilling academy. And I want to tell you, Madam Speaker, when we opened that drilling school, a member of the executive board of the energy corporations come and said, you know how long, I don't want to call their names, but I will call the name of one Mr. Roger Packer, who was the president of the Energy Chamber, and he said, Minister, you know how long we're waiting for this? Thank you very much. I said, oh, thank me, thank Mrs. Bisessa. I am there because of her. And I want to tell you we are proud. And I want to say as well, Madam Speaker, if I had continued in 2015, with the permission of my Prime Minister, NESC drilling school would have been in Georgetown, Guyana, all now. You know why? Because ExxonMobil they're not seeing a drop of oil on Georgetown, much as the east or west bank of the Demerara. Because what is happening is that, and again, I have the notes here with NESC. For the first time, President Goodluck Jonathan came to Trinidad to do what? We were training Nigerians here, Ugandans, Tanzanians, all of them. As a matter of fact, in one cohort of training, we made $1 million from training welders and fabricators from the Niger Delta. We're not sitting, so don't tell me about profligate. Profligate is in terms of the benefits of the people of this country for the development of the country. That is economic development and benefit. I also want to tell you, my colleagues say it is investing. Yes, there's a slogan called investing in people. And I want to announce, Madam Speaker, if given the opportunity again by my political leader, by the member for Separia, I'm going to coin a phrase that I'm going to release here now with her permission. Where there is a will, there will be a skill. And I'll tell you why. If you want to believe what I'm saying, look at the CNBC report of the 18th of October, 2018, and you will see CNBC says that the future of the workforce is not about academia, it is about skill. It is about skill. And I want to also say, you know what beats me, Madam Speaker? People in this country, we are boasting about unemployment rate. Under the People's Partnership by Mrs. Bissessa, we had the lowest amount of unemployment. I can tell you the rate of unemployment right now might look like 4.6%, might look like 4.9%, but that is not the test of the pudding. You have to look at the amount of unemployment among the age group 16 to 25, the youth unemployment, and you'll be surprised to know that the youth unemployment is in double figures, and that is what is going to impact upon this country. You are allowing the talent of Trinidad and Tobago to be wasted. And I'm saying to all of us here, and I'm saying to the member, let me tell you what profligate spending was not under Mrs. Bissessa. We had a slogan, get off the block, get in a classroom, learn something, earn something. As a matter of fact, we created, and I want to tell you as well of the NESC, before I go further. I said the NESC would have been in Georgetown. Well, they listen to me. NESC is now going to be training persons in heavy equipment at Linden, 65 miles from Georgetown, Guyana. Of course, when we did geography, we would have learned there was nothing called Linden. When you read Macpherson, Caribbean lands, it was called Mackenzie. That's a bauxite town. So what happened now, when the president, he became president, his name was Forbes Linden Sampson Bernard. That is how Linden became Linden. That's just a little lesson for those who listen attentively. But what I'm saying as well is that is the first time. What they are doing is we are calling internationalization. I want to tell you something, Madam Speaker. My information from the NESC is that they are going into new frontiers without the assistance and the support of the Ministry of Education. So don't tell me about profligate. This is progressive thinking on the part of the People's Partnership, if you were there. Madam Speaker, I am proud to say, when we came into office, we met the participation rate in the tertiary sector of 40%. We had set a target, and that's one of the differences. When you look at the manifesto of the People's Partnership, and you look at the manifesto of the PNM, you will see that they say a lot of things they will do, and still can't do after 4 years. We say a lot of things, and after 4 years, Madam Speaker, I could tell you, I have it here, and I can't show it to you because I know you'll tell me I can't display. But this here is a document I have, is a supplement of the newspaper. After 4 years, what we would have accomplished. I asked this government, and I asked the member for the Gomati Northeast to tell us what you have accomplished after 4 years. Madam Speaker, I want to tell you, I have two publications here. One which was done under the leadership of Mrs. Bissessa, and which was compiled by my colleague, the member for Caroni Central, then Minister of Planning. It is an A document, and that A document is an achievement document. But what we get after 4 years from the PNM? Another A document. What is it called? An allegation document. And hear what they say. That is what you produce after 4 years, after allegation document. The Patriot's Guide to Why Never Again PNM. Well, if it's never again, do something for we forever now. Change the culture of this country. We produce achievements, you produce allegation. And with all the allegation you are there, can't charge nobody. Stop the allegation, stop the accusation, get on with serious work. That's the only platform they have. Madam Speaker, I want to tell you, I have quite a lot I could indicate. But I want to tell you that when we're looking at the profligate spending, and I'm using this in terms of the achievements as well, you look at YTEP. YTEP Limited, the Youth Training and Employment Partnership Program Limited. Madam Speaker, we built the home for YTEP. We did not have to rent any facility again. It is built at Woodford Lodge. And when we built the NESC at Woodford Lodge, and I was just going to indicate to my friend, the Minister of Education, I was just going to tell him that I have a suggestion for you if you're looking for space as well. Right in the Woodford Lodge area has space available that you could use at least for the SEA students in the next 5 weeks as they prepare for the exams from the Montrose Vedic School. And again, that is how we are. We're not afraid to share our knowledge and our information and our recommendation. Why? Because it is for the benefit of everyone in Trinidad and Tobago. And Madam Speaker, when we look at the John D, which you know, the John Donaldson, is now UTT. When you look at San Fernando Tech, that too is UTT. And I said, what about something for Central Trinidad? So that there's equity as well as in Tobago. I indicated, Mrs. Bissessel recall, the very first thing we opened in Tobago in May of 2011 was the Tobago Technology Center. We expanded facilities up and down in Tobago. Don't talk about OJT offices. Up and down. Madam Speaker, I want to tell you, we did not discriminate. We allowed everyone to have an opportunity and a chance. And I was talking about the YTEP. The schools in Tobago as well that my colleague, Dr. Gopi Singh, would have been able to complete. Hospitals in Tobago. I mean, I was only, Madam Speaker, I said before I was only going to talk about me, but you see how much more thing we could talk about? I was just talking about the area I was responsible for. But I mustn't be selfish. We did quite a lot throughout the country, anywhere you go. And that is why people are saying now that we want Mrs. Bissessel to return, because we want us to go back to those days, not of profligate spending, but of beneficial and developmental spending. And in terms of YTEP, I want to tell you, Madam Speaker, one of the things that I'm proud about is that we outfitted buses. We took buses that were no longer in use by PTSC. We outfitted those buses with computers. We carpeted, we air conditioned, we towed them, we plugged them in. And you know what we call that, Madam Speaker? Taking technology to the people, right? All the rural areas. And some of my colleagues on the other side probably don't know some of these things, you know, because they don't hear much about it. So I will tell them they could ask for it now. We also had a bus, a cosmetology, state-of-the-art, a salon on wheels. We had from the MIC, we had a welding bus, where we could have taken that in the communities so that people will be able to improve their welding. As I talk about welding, I just want to talk about profligate spending in terms of the investment in people, as my colleague from St. Augustine was saying. Madam Speaker, a lot is, if you look at what is happening around the world, I will tell you, whenever I travel, I always see something that I could bring back to improve. And one of the things that I looked at was how could we spend less money? That is what the Prime Minister is saying, you know. In his presentation, he said how we could spend on the amendment to the motion, how we could get more and spend less. Because the thing's hard. And that is one of the reasons why we moved the head office for the Ministry of Tertiary Education from right here, next door, level 16, 17, and 18 at the Tower C to Shogunas. We're saving a lot of money, but not only that, people are complaining about the loss of productivity and traffic hours. And therefore, we are bringing people away from the crowded city centers so they'll be able to have easy access. I want to tell Minister Rambarat, don't get too comfortable. In a short while, I'll be back. Go back my building. Madam Speaker, so I was telling you about YTEP. So we had the cosmetology bus, we had the computer buses, we had the virtual welding bus from MIC. You know why we were creating this? We had a bus in terms of the accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, for the first time under our administration, the ACTT accredited 12 institutions in the tertiary sector. I want to ask this current government, I was hoping to hear from the Honorable Prime Minister what he was going to do with a lot of these institutions. How many have you accredited? And because you have interfered with the GATE program, how many more you will accredit? Because you are saying that only those that are accredited will be given GATE assistance. Madam Speaker, we had 65,000 persons accessing the GATE program. Madam Speaker, we had over 8,000 persons accessing the on-the-job training program. I get to my office on a daily basis, people who don't have work, and they're so willing to accept an OJT job. You know why? Because they could get a sum of money like over $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, depending upon their qualification. But the OJT is not only about working as a trainee. The OJT was making you more marketable by putting what you are doing on the CV. And I wanted to, again, I was reading recently, CBS Miami / mentorship program. And what they are doing is like what we are doing, and we can also learn from them. They have an apprenticeship program, which we also have. And speaking about apprenticeship, I don't know what is the state of PLIAP. You see, the Minister of Education asked me what that is. Oh, sorry, somebody near to you. Somebody near to you. PLIAP means the Point Lisa's Industrial Apprenticeship Program. Where we are producing technicians for the industry. Where is that? Where has it gone? What is the status of the OJT program? We left $374 million in the OJT account. Why did we do that? So that, and you know, Madam Speaker, what I did? Again, with the guidance and under the supervision of the Honourable Prime Minister, because all of these things had to come to Cabinet. I couldn't just change it, so it has some things that do go to Cabinet that all you don't know about. Sorry, but the members on the other side don't know about. But you will hear it here for the first time. And what we did, Madam Speaker, I'll tell you what we did with the OJT program. We created something called OJT Medical, OJT Media, OJT Airports, and let me give you an example of OJT Medical. When you couldn't find a space because we didn't have enough space for students to access their medical degrees in Trinidad, I created that program so we can pay you as an OJT to work while you are waiting for your deferred application approval to enter medical school next year. And in this year, what you would have done is work in the health centers, the hospitals, the nursing homes, and do what? Get valuable experience. And what the dean of the faculty was telling us, those were the better students. And what we also did is created the OJT account, not profligate spending, but purposefully driven spending for the development of the individuals, the citizens, and the country of Trinidad and Tobago. What was that OJT account? Well, you were entitled between ages 16 to 35 for a 2-year period of...
Honourable Member for Shagona Seat, your original speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 15 more minutes if you wish to continue your presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for your kind courtesy. Madam Speaker, I was talking about the OJT program. And talking about the OJT program, I was telling you about OJT PIACO and the OJT account that we created. It's a simple thing. Microsoft OJT. I'll come to that because you see, if I really go to talk about what I alone do with all my colleagues, I need about 2 amendments again to the motion. But Madam Speaker, with due respect, I just want to indicate to you, because many people don't understand what the OJT account is. When I became minister, you had to serve for 2 years, and that was it. What I did is to help these young students who, like me when I was there, I mean, I know I'll lose my hair, but I'm still young, feeling so. You would have had, during when you write exam, as a matter of fact, when I see the poetry now, blooming, I know that's the time for exam when we go in UE. But during that time, you have a little 3-month period. So what I did is I allowed the students between year 1 and year 2, the 3 months to work. When you're going to year 2 to year 3, 3 months you work. And when you finish year 3, you work for the 18 months. So like 24. And what I would have done would have made you more marketable. You get work experience, but very importantly, you save a little money. You help your parents. Do you know, I don't know how many of my colleagues in here know, that OJTs are also husbands and wives with families and they depend on it. And you find it difficulty in placing people. I have the solution for that, and I want to tell you what it is as well. The mentorship program that I saw on CBS, and you could go and Google it, go and learn something. cbsmiami.com, mentorship. And what it says, it is you have the pre-apprenticeship and you have the apprenticeship. And people are being paid to learn a skill. That is why I'm saying, where there is a will, there will be a skill, and we will provide that. Madam Speaker, I want workforce assessment. And the Prime Minister, well, previous Prime Minister liked the workforce assessment, that idea. So let me tell you what it is. The workforce assessment is where many of our people in our country, you might be a plumber, you might do your hair nice like that. You might be a good cosmetologist, but you have no certification. No matter where you go, no matter how well you are, the first thing they ask is, what are your qualifications? I have 5 O-levels. And what can you do? I have 5 O-levels. And where will you be able to work? I have 5 O-levels. And that is how you keep answering. So what we decided to do was all those persons who may be plumbers, masons, carpenters, hairdressers, whatever it is. We say, you come to our centers. The MIC was one of them. The NESC was one of them. YTEP was one of them. The National Training Agency was one of them. Present yourself with nothing. Tell us what you can do. And we'll assess you. I know my friend from Maruka Maloney just waiting to hear these words. CVQ. CVQ. the Caribbean vocational qualification. So what you do is you come, I present myself, and you assess me against competences as a plumber, whether it's level 1 or unit award, and we assess you and we give you the CVQ. The Honorable Prime Minister stood in this house right here and made a statement, a prime ministerial statement, on the free movement of people in CARICOM. Up to now, we have to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago is part of the CARICOM skills passport, so that whatever we train, whoever we train, whatever we do in this country, has mobility and marketability and prominence within the CARICOM community. Madam Speaker, as we are talking about the Workforce Assessment Center, I also want to say that the Workforce Assessment Center continues at the NESC in Point Lisas. And how is it doing so? Methanex, a company on the Point Lisas Industrial Estate, is now mandating all their contractors must visit, send their employees to the NESC to be assessed in 2 areas that they want them: pipe fitting and welding fabricators. And when you are assessed and you are certified, then you get into the plant to do some work. That is what we are talking about, building competences. Madam Speaker, when you read what is happening in the world today, a lot of people are freelancing. People can't make ends meet. My political leader just reminded me about what happened to the plywood factory, $350 million in Labre. And that's the point I was making. There's so many things. What about this shipbuilding, this dry dock facility? I want to ask all of us in this house, can anybody tell me here, can the Honorable Prime Minister, who made that statement over and over in the half part of the second half of the projects, he gave a number of projects for downstream. Look, I didn't touch diversification in a serious way yet. So can he tell us, what are the skills required? You're saying that the petrochemical workers could apply there. Other workers who lost their work could apply there. It's easy to say that. Madam Speaker, let me tell you something. You know what I'm going to say. When someone dies and you go to that home, you say what you are expected to say. I'm here to extend my condolences. I know how you feel. Hey, listen, Madam Speaker, the truth is you really know that. When it happened to you, then you know that. When you lost your work, then you know what it is to be a work. When you lost your work, you might lose your wife, you might lose your family. That is why I asked the Minister of Health today to tell me in the question and answer period, if you can tell us, you said how much persons had mental depression and so on mental case 2018, tell me what it was in 2017, what it was in 2016. Are we seeing a rise in that trajectory? What it is we've seen? And if it is we've seen it, what are we doing about it? Madam Speaker, I want to tell you what the government of Trinidad and Tobago has said in their presentation in terms of the vesting bill and what they're going to do with petrochemical workers. Remind me of 2014 in this very place, where statements and promises were made to the workers of Caribbean in 1975 Limited. You're going to have counseling. You're going to have training. I asked the question, and you know what the answer said? It's a similar figure like the PNM, like the figure 9,000 to close down. They closed down 9,000 petrochemical, 9,000 Caribbean. And I asked the question, of the $32 million or $22 million you spent, what is the return on that investment? How many people are qualified? And as I say, and as I talk about young people and so on, I want to ask the member for Diego Martin Northeast. In the budget 2016, which was read on the 5th of October 2015, written into that document was the fact that there was going to be a graduate training program. It was called Graduate Recruitment Program. An allocation of $55 million in all 23 ministries, where 500 graduates are going to be employed, approximately 20 university graduates per ministry. I asked the question, what has happened to that program? Where is it? How many persons? And Madam Speaker, I want to tell you as well, that in all the budget statements, I have the titles of the budget statement. The last one is called Turnaround. And all the budget statements, when you read them, you have a similar thing being repeated. The yachting services industry, the creative industry. And my colleague from Princeton talk about suits. Let me just take a sip of water. I'll come into that. On a page, the left-hand top corner of that budget statement, I have it here. It was said that, in fact, look, I reach it, man. Page 58, top left-hand corner, one paragraph. Under John D, it will have a garment construction and tailoring program. I want to raise the question again. What is the status or the status of that program? By one Professor Ramrup. is that program that was said to be at UTT, now at MIC? If it has been conducted by MIC, how much money it costed? How many trainees we had? Enrollment is different to graduation, just like certification is different to qualification. And if you don't believe me, read Ivan Illich, The Deschooling of a Society. And therefore, what we want to indicate as well here, Madam Speaker, there are many things that were said. For example, in our 2018 budget, which was entitled Changing the Paradigm, putting the economy on a sustainable path. And I know that my colleague from the Gomartin noticed. At one time, he was my former boss. And he used a statement here. I never say fireman. Let me just make, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the member for the Gomartin Northeast did not fire me because he was not the minister when I was there and was fired. Mustafa Abdul Hamid fired me. Yeah. So I just want to clear that up. But since he's smiling, I want to say what I want to say now. I want to ask him. Tell me, what has happened to the boast, my dear colleague from the Gomartin Northeast, on page 45, in case you forgot the page you wrote it in, about the Shark Tank. What it is about yachting? You see, you don't know what is the Shark Tank. What it is about the creative industries. What about the creative talent? What about the yachting industry? Yesterday I saw in the papers that we have a yachting services policy now. But listen, you can have a policy and you have no people and you have no program. Where are you going with that? It's just words and words again, just like the manifesto.
Madam Speaker, this motion is to take note of the Prime Minister's report to the nation, not the budget statement.
And sir, thank you, Madam Speaker. And in fact, all of what I'm saying here is repeated by the Prime Minister in his two-part presentation. And I will quote the pages for you, man. In terms of yachting services, it is under diversification. I have it here, and he talks about the dry dock facility. He talks about yachting. But I want to tell you what I also want to talk about. I want to talk about the Dragon Plenty. But I want to also indicate, and some of the things that were spoken of in terms of tourism. But, Madam Speaker, in the few minutes remaining, I just want to focus a few items now on my constituency. Because I always tell them, in fact, I coined the phrase to my constituency in Shogunas East, let me be your voice. Yes. And I promise them I'll be their voice in the parliament. So since the member for the Gomartin Northeast was saying something that's not true, I want to remind him that he came to this house in the midterm review of 2016 or 17. I just want to make sure that I'm correct. And indicate, when the Minister of Works and Transport was the member for Lavantil West, they indicated that there'll be a ring road in Shogunas. Well, I don't think it's a ring road, it's a runaround. Because we haven't seen anything but the ring and no road at all. Traffic continues by the roundabout and by that area, by the overpass in Endeavour. Traffic continues in Kunapir. I also want to ask the Minister of Education, and I call upon him here again for another time. Please come and join me. You answered the question here about the Das Straits Early Childhood Center and the Egypt Oasis Primary School being 99% completed. Honorable Member, Minister, I ask you, although, and again I'm relating this because this is about people empowerment that the Prime Minister spoke about. Please do not suffer the people in enterprise. If it is 1% more over the Prime Minister spoke, made his comments here about police stations and crime. I listened to him recently in Tobago. And my colleague for Tobago, he was present because he identified that. I didn't see, but I was listening on the radio. And he said that the Old Grange police station was like a fortress. Or maybe the next one is a fortress, Roxborough. But he made mention about two police stations, Roxborough and Old Grange. And I asked the Prime Minister through his presentation, please, the next time you speak, don't forget the Enterprise Police Station. Yes. We need it. And as Minister responsible for community development, I ask again in terms of community aspects in this presentation the Prime Minister made, to consider us with the African Grounds Community Center. I asked today, again in terms of trade and investment and people and skills that he spoke about for all of these projects, help us with the trade school, the first ever of its kind for enterprise. We can't want to solve problems and sit down here and hope it and pray. Yes, God say pray, but he say he will help those who help themselves. Madam Speaker, I want to tell you, the homework centers continue, and we want to increase. Those are dismantled. Again, it has to do with the Prime Minister's presentation. We cannot move a society forward if we do not empower the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, this goes like
Member for Tobago East.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Before I go into my presentation, I would just like to address a few comments made by the Honourable Member for Princestown, as well as my good friend for Shogunas East. Madam Speaker, we are often accused of focusing on the past and dredging up issues from way back when. But when the member for Princestown was talking about excessive spending, all the examples he could have gone to was pre our government. Every instance, Madam Speaker, of profligate or whatever the word is spending, he had to go before 2010. He could not in true form accuse this government of wasting taxpayers' resources. He could not in good faith accuse this government of not putting people first, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my friend for Shogunas East would have mentioned a host of different things that would have been done while he was minister, and he would have mentioned a few projects done in Tobago. But, Madam Speaker, while a few projects were indeed done in Tobago to help to alleviate the people of Tobago and to improve our standard of living, the bulk of the investment was not done on the island of Tobago or done to benefit the majority of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It was centered and concentrated around a few. So, yes, Madam Speaker, it benefited a few. Madam Speaker, when you want to talk about wastage, when you want to talk about corruption, when you want to talk about spending money as though money is going out of style, I want to talk about a glad boy and a glad girl syndrome. And I want to give one example, Madam Speaker, because the money that I'm going to refer to here could have been used to impact lives positively. The money could have been used to build more assessment centers for the Children's Authority. The money could have been used to pay more CPEP workers. The money could have been used to pay more gratuities to nurses at the Tobago Regional Health Authority. And the money could have been used to actually do more training facilities in Tobago. Madam Speaker, I have here a contract with some invoices, right? And when I talk about the glad boy syndrome, is when you get into government, when you're expecting to get somewhere, and you have the opportunity to spend money that isn't yours, you spend it without conscience sometimes. So, Madam Speaker, I want to talk here about a certain minister under the last regime. Glad boy syndrome, Madam Speaker. Glad boy syndrome would have hired a photographer to follow him around and take pictures, Madam Speaker, throughout the length and breadth of Tobago, and most instances throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad. That particular member is not here today. The member for Orpuch East would have had a photographer follow him around, Madam Speaker, and would have racked up a bill of over $250,000 in photographs. Madam Speaker, the reason why I'm bringing this up today, because that is what you call wasteful spending, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I would have mentioned before, that money, although some of them might claim it's a jiggle in the piggy bank like the $34 million from the so-called Life Fund fiasco, that $250,000, Madam Speaker, could have gone towards recruiting more people on the OJT program. They spoke about wanting more people on the OJT program to have an opportunity to learn a skill and to get themselves ready for the world of work. Madam Speaker, that money could have gone towards that if we had it today. Madam Speaker, that money could have gone towards paying, as I would have mentioned before, some of the gratuities or some of the nurses under the Tobago Regional Health Authority. That money could have gone towards the payment per child system that the Office of the Prime Minister has implemented throughout our children's homes, helping our young people, our vulnerable boys and girls, to have access to funds to see about their psychosocial needs, Madam Speaker. So while they could boast about a few good things, when you really check the past, Madam Speaker, they wasted the money. And it was done under the guidance, under the leadership, and under the support for the member superior, who was then the Prime Minister. She would have had to sanction that, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, when they're trying to talk about wasting money, they couldn't point to today. They couldn't point to this time and this period under the Honourable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. One thing I could say without fear of contradiction is that whenever funds are allocated, we are encouraged to use the money for what's intended purpose, Madam Speaker, and to ensure that the people who are supposed to benefit actually benefit, Madam Speaker. I want to commend my colleague, member for the Martin North East, for being able to manage the economy. Madam Speaker, in this time, I am seeing how more can be done with less. I am seeing how people in Tobago, even though the allocations might not be what we want at the Tobago House of Assembly level, I'm seeing their lives in Tobago are being transformed. Madam Speaker, with reduced funds, I'm seeing where the Tobago House of Assembly would have introduced training programs geared towards ensuring food security and diversifying the Tobago's economy. I'm seeing right here, Madam Speaker, in Trinidad, with limited funds, where this government is ensuring that our children, our most vulnerable, are having access to the services they require to lead healthy, happy lives, Madam Speaker. I am seeing with reduced funds where this government would have found resources to ensure we implement training programs so our boys and our girls know of their rights. And while they know of their rights, they also know of their responsibility. And I'm seeing that is being transferred into the communities where we are tackling issues such as bullying and abuse, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm seeing in this time where funds are limited, that work is being done to ensure that our economy is diversified. Madam Speaker, the member for Shogwanas East spoke about the Prime Minister during his presentation over the 2 days, focusing on the past and not really speaking towards the future. But, Madam Speaker, one thing I could boast about is the fact that this Prime Minister has consistently gone out and engaged the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Without a script, Madam Speaker, open, vulnerable, he has faced the people of Trinidad and Tobago, presented the bare facts, and engaged them in discussions so that together we can chart the way forward for our country. Madam Speaker, we inherited a lot. We inherited chaos. We inherited corruption. We inherited mismanagement. And it is imperative that any leader, a responsible leader, would pull your people together, let them know this is the current situation, explain to them how we got to where we are, and, Madam Speaker, engage them continuously on our way forward. That is what our Prime Minister has done from 2015 to now. Every time the Prime Minister engages the public, he would say to them, this is the situation now. You have a role to play. We cannot do it alone. This requires all hands on deck. And, Madam Speaker, you're seeing now where the public is actually buying in and giving full support. I remember after the presentation, a lot of people in my constituency would have said to me, I now understand what is happening. When the Prime Minister used that $100 bill to show the state of the economy and what we have to pay and what we have left in hand to do the work we have to do, people said, I understand now. Because that $100 is applicable to every man on the road. The most common person, that $100 is applicable. You know, if you have $100, if you have to buy something, what your commitments are and what you're going to do. And what stood out for my constituents, what stood out for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, is the fact that with less cash in hand to do work and to do projects, things are happening, meaningful things are happening to impact the lives of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. And even though things are happening, one thing I could say without fear of contradiction is that they cannot really and truly accuse anybody on this side for using state funds, for using taxpayers' dollars for your own personal aggrandizement. We're not going to take taxpayers' dollars to have anybody follow us up and down to take pictures to boost any ego. We will never take taxpayers' dollars, Madam Speaker, to host any fete anywhere about, Madam Speaker, just to look good. Or just to big up yourself, or to say we're celebrating how much months or how much years. Madam Speaker, I heard my colleague on the other side for Separate talking about phone bill. Madam Speaker, let them not fool the public. Let them not fool the public. If I could go back and pull from different ministers during their time, we had phone bills just as high or even worse.
Yes, not even from government ministers.
Madam Speaker, when you want to talk about spending money and spending money wise, not spending money wisely, Madam Speaker, let them talk about people being paid to walk around and carry a scarf and a bag, because certainly my Prime Minister isn't doing that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, whatever investment we have made in Trinidad and Tobago has been to the benefit of every single citizen. Madam Speaker, they talk about starting projects and launching projects and the difference between a commissioning and an opening. Madam Speaker, there's a plaque on a building in Central, and the building was open to serve as a transition home since 2015. Madam Speaker, it was only last that we could truly get young boys into that facility, because yes, they open it, they commission it, but Madam Speaker, the building was never ever ready for anybody to occupy it. And apart from having it ready to be occupied, Madam Speaker, we had to program the building to ensure that the young boys going there would be properly managed. And we are working to ensure that whatever we deliver to those boys will be of the best quality, Madam Speaker, even if it means constantly reviewing the management structure in place to ensure that only people with the right intentions are in there. People who genuinely want to serve those young boys and help them to transition to a better state of life. Madam Speaker, there's a facility that was supposed to be used for differently abled persons. Yes, they open it. Yes, they commission it. But my colleague, the Minister for Social Development, would say that that building has never been able to serve the persons who are intended to benefit from it, Madam Speaker. They put up a building, rush and put up a plaque and have an opening ceremony just to boast and to try to get some votes and try to get some fame. But at the end of the day, the intention was never pure, it was never genuine. So those differently able persons who should have been able to benefit from that facility, they still can't benefit, Madam Speaker. But you know what, Madam Speaker? Yes, they may argue that you take 2 years or whatever, but Madam Speaker, we take our time to ensure that when we are doing it correctly, and we are doing it so that those who should benefit actually benefit, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I listened to my colleague on the other side, the member for Shogunas East, talking about all the wonderful projects in terms of, developing the MIC and the technology centers and all of that. But Madam Speaker, while they were busy doing all of those supposedly beneficial programs, they neglected a large portion of the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago. The bulk of the investment was not done in areas where people are most vulnerable, Madam Speaker. And because of that, we feel the effects today. We feel the effects in our communities, our vulnerable communities. We feel the effects even in Tobago, Madam Speaker, because the investment was never ever genuine or towards the benefit of the majority. It was always meant to line the pockets of a few and to enrich their close friends, families, and associates. Madam Speaker, they could never, ever accuse those of us on this side of seeking our interests ahead of the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, in preparing for the contribution, the debate today, I would have come across a quote. And it is about justice, and it is about governance and government. Justice, Madam Speaker, comes about when people are aware of the business and government is actually doing the business of the people, and people are actually playing an important role in ensuring that the business of the people gets done. But in order to make sound decisions, wise decisions, you have to be educated, you have to know truth from fiction. Madam Speaker, when the Honourable Prime Minister addressed the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago over those 2 days, he had no choice but to face the reality of the situation and ensure that people understand what is happening, because every single day we are faced with an opposition determined to peddle fake news, an opposition that is constantly looking to spread false information and create discord in Trinidad and Tobago. So over those 2 days, the Honourable Prime Minister had no choice but to say to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, this is how we got to where we are today, and this is where we are going. Madam Speaker, if we had a responsible opposition that was willing to really face facts, own up to their mistakes, own up to their wrongdoings, and say, let us come on board and work with you, we would not have had to do that, Madam Speaker. But constantly, they have encouraged the peddling of fake news and false information, which is affecting the psyche of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is at a point now, Madam Speaker, where people, when even they face them the truth, give them the truth, they're facing the truth, they don't know if to believe it, if to take it, Madam Speaker, because of the role the opposition has played, enabled by certain aspects of the media to push false propaganda, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, today I stand here proud to be a part of a team that is willing to take the licks at all times and face the consequences once we know that we are working in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, the member for Princestown, he would have mentioned that my colleague, the member for St. Joseph, would have made a statement about, he mentioned that the member for St. Joseph made a comment, right? And he tried to play on the words to make certain connotations, and the member of Princestown would have tried to run with that, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, one thing I could say here today is that when we debate on this side, we debate with facts, and we debate, we debate with facts, and we debate with the truth at all times. Madam Speaker, I remember when we were doing the marriage. Madam Speaker, I remember when we were doing the marriage bill, and I would have said to one of my colleagues, and I said to one of my colleagues, I said, I'm sure that you all are going to support it. And I remember I was told that's not necessarily so. I remember that, Madam Speaker, and I was taken aback, and I was saying to myself, you know, what it is about a bill that could positively impact the lives of our boys and girls that one could argue down, Madam Speaker. And they would have argued against it, and then today, the member for Princeton is pretending as though that never happened. But Madam Speaker, the facts, as they say, is stubborn, very stubborn thing. You voted for it, Madam Speaker, they voted for it after pressure, after the NGO sector came out in strong support of it, Madam Speaker, and that is the truth. That is the truth, Madam Speaker.
Shouting across the floor. It's not acceptable. If a member says something, one either makes an interjection in the proper way, or another member on the other side, when time comes, will clear it up. Member for Tobago East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you know, even though they may try to shut me down, it wouldn't negate the fact that what I'm saying, the public would hear, they would understand, and they would believe, and they would see them for the pretenders that they are, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I am confident that the information the public would have received when the Prime Minister did his presentation and the work that is being done by the various ministers and ministries would help to build a level of confidence in the public of Trinidad and Tobago that this government will be able to take us forward. This government will be able to help us to transform our economy, and this government will be able to restore decency and order in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, the days of mismanagement, the days of wasteful spending, the days of corruption, and the days of suffering people for our own personal benefit, those days ended in September 2015. And even though we would have had to make some tough decisions, Madam Speaker, we all know that once you're ill and you have to go to a physician, the physician will either administer an injection or sometimes a bitter pill. And we all know that even though we may dread the sting of the injection, I may not want to swallow the bitter pill, we would have to if we want to get better. This government made some tough decisions, but necessary decisions. This government had to administer the injection and the bitter pill. But at the end of the day, this government is safeguarding Trinidad and Tobago not for today, but for tomorrow, to ensure that our children and our children's children would have something to inherit, and that our country would have a long-lasting legacy, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with these few words, I would like to thank you for the opportunity.
Member for Kubwa South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. As I am very pleased to join this debate this evening in relation to the original motion that was moved by the member for Siparia, which sought to address that the House consider the details of the two-part address by the Honorable Dr. Keith Rowley, Prime Minister, termed Mind Your Business. And Madam Speaker, there seems to be an obsession on the part of the government to paint a narrative that the opposition has not been responsible in supporting legislation when it is brought by the government to this House. And immediately, I want to indicate that that narrative that they have attempted to paint since they have been in government for the approximately 4 years is really designed to mask their incompetence and their lack of delivery and lack of vision for the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. And I immediately want to correct the records here this evening because the member for Tobago East indicated that the opposition did not support the passage of the marriage bill. And I just want to read from the Hansard because when the vote was taken, Madam Speaker, you reported that the result of the division, 35 members for, no members against, no abstention, and it was a clear-cut indication. It was a clear-cut indication that the opposition supported the marriage bill in this very said House, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, that has been the narrative, as I said, because recently in the public domain, the Attorney General, and I want to again indicate that, Madam Speaker, because I was going in the direction of what the Attorney General has been indicating, and at that point in time when the vote was completed, I quote from the Hansard on that said day, the Honorable Faris Al-Rawi. I will just smile for a moment, Madam Speaker. I am elated and I thank honorable members and you, Madam Speaker, sincerely. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill to amend the Marriage Act, Chapter 4501, the Muslim Marriage Act and Divorce Act, Chapter 4502, the Hindu Marriage Act, Chapter 4503, the Orisha Marriage Act, Chapter 4504, and the Matrimonial Proceedings and Property Act, Chapter 4551, be forthwith read a third time and passed, Madam Speaker. That was the track record of the opposition in giving tangible and tacit support to the government, Madam Speaker. And this has been the narrative. The Attorney General recently too went out into the public domain and indicated that the opposition did not support certain bills that were brought to the parliament of this country. And this was
of what the motion is. And while I understood you to stand up to correct something, that discussion about the marriage bill came up in a particular context. So I'm not going to let you go on with legislation. I want you to tie whatever you're going to say now very quickly into the text of the motion or the proposed amendment that is before us.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm guided. I have set the record straight in terms of the opposition role in this parliament. And the member for Tobago East, Madam Speaker, during her delivery, indicated that the life of persons in Tobago, it has been improving under the government of Dr. Keith Rowley. People are living healthy and happy lives and so on. And today I want to ask the member for Tobago East if she can name one project which the PNM central government has completed for the benefit of the people of Tobago in their 4th year of being the central government of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. That is the track record of the PNM, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, I want to remind I do not know why you are getting so animated, member for Tobago East. You had your opportunity, and I will outline and rebut what you raised in this particular debate. Madam Speaker, I want to ask you, what is the status of the Sandals project 2 days after the Prime Minister engaged in its 2-part series to the nation, Madam Speaker? The reality is that after 2 days, within 2 days of the Prime Minister addressing the nation in relation to the state of affairs and the economy of this country, the Sandals project collapsed. The Sandals project collapsed, and I want to indicate to you that it is my humble view and opinion that this project, which collapsed and the government indicated that Sandals withdrew, it was a choreographed withdrawal simply because the government did not have the resources to build this or follow through on this particular project. And at the end of the day, spend 3.5 years deceiving the population of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker.
Words about deceiving the population, and we say it another way, please.
Well, Madam Speaker, I'm guided, and well, I could slant it in another direction where.
So withdraw it, and according to as you say, rephrase it, not slant it in another direction, rephrase it.
Madam Speaker, I withdraw, and I would indicate that the Prime Minister misinformed the population of Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to the status of the Sandals project, Madam Speaker. And I want to ask the member for Tobago East, Madam Speaker, whether her government that she belonged to presided over the collapse of the domestic sea bridge, Madam Speaker, and what was the state of affairs when.
This is now 4:30. I now suspend the House for the break. This House is now suspended. We shall return at 5 p.m.